Chapter 1999. Emo Shaochai was annoyed. Who are you talking about? You, of course. Yun Qianshuang felt that she was on equal footing with Su Yu and was not afraid of his subordinates. Let me ask you, after the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce empties the martial artists of their wealth, will they have the money to buy things in the future? If they don't have money, then so be it. What does that have to do with us? Emo Shaochai was unconcerned. That's how naive you are. Let me ask you, if the people of the Tai Chi faction have no money, how will they buy the goods in the market? If no one buys the goods, will the shops close down? If the shops close down, will the rich owners take their wealth and leave the Tai Chi civilization to develop in other prosperous civilizations? If the owners leave on a large scale, will the businesses fall into depression? After the businesses fall into depression, no one will want the treasures excavated by the martial artists, and no one will buy the daily necessities refined by them. They will fall into a desperate situation. What will they do to survive? Burn, kill, rob, plunder. The Tai Chi civilization is in chaos, and resources are scarce. What will the Tai Chi faction rely on to accumulate resources? Your foundation will gradually decrease until you have nothing left. What will you use to recruit new disciples then? Without new disciples, how long can the Tai Chi faction exist? The crowd was disdainful at first, but gradually, their expressions became more and more serious. Emo Shaochai was deep in thought. What she said made too much sense. It seemed that the martial artists being extorted had nothing to do with the Tai Chi faction, but the negative effects would gradually appear in the future, and the Tai Chi civilization would enter a vicious cycle. Perhaps the prosperous Tai Chi civilization would really fall into a state of decline. For a moment, everyone was on high alert, wary of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Yun Qianshuang finished speaking in one breath, then said disdainfully, I finally understand how you became the master of the Tai Chi faction. Being associated with a bunch of pigs, it would be difficult for you not to be the master. Su Yu calmly shook his head. They just haven't come into contact with the dangers of the business world. Now, does anyone have any objections to opening the Tai Chi faction's treasury? The old woman said, I wholeheartedly agree. We must not let the maggots of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce succeed. The Earth Elders also agreed. Only after Yun Qianshuang's explanation did they realize the great danger hidden in the price fluctuations this time. Emo Shaochai also agreed. She said, It's just that our Tai Chi sect's heritage can only last for 20 days. I'm afraid that it will be very difficult for us to last for a month. At that time, our Tai Chi sect's treasury will be completely exhausted, and we won't be able to suppress the prices of goods. Instead, we will fall into an even worse situation. Su Yu nodded. You're right, but you don't have to worry about the resources. I'll contact a group of people right now, and they'll try their best to deliver the resources you need. I believe it won't be difficult to hold on for a month. The upper echelons of the Taiji sect came to a consensus. Several hours later, they used the mansions of the Dark Shadow Elders as temporary shops to sell daily necessities, including pills, talismans, materials, and so on. Thanks to the Taiji sect's many years of heritage, they had all kinds of resources. They completely satisfied the needs of the Taiji sect's civilization. Originally, it was difficult for martial artists to obtain a medicinal pill even if they had 1,000 taels of gold. Suddenly knowing that the Tai Chi sect had opened the treasury and was selling it at the usual low price, who would still buy it in the market? All of them went to the residences of the Yin Yang elders to buy them. For a time, Elder Yin Yang's mansion was packed to the point of bursting. In front of a mansion, there were easily over 1 million creatures, and there was still an unending stream of people gathering. Because of this, the Yin Yang elders were extremely busy, and they mobilized their own disciples to help with the sales. In order to prevent the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce from hiring people to buy the Taiji sect's resources wantonly, Su Yu ordered the implementation of a numbering system. Everyone could only buy once a day based on their own number. Moreover, the number of pills sold at once was limited to the amount used for that day. Because of this, the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was at its wits' end. In a restaurant with few people, a group of people was gathered in a private room. The people present were all famous merchants of the Taiji civilization. Among them were the bosses of the elixirs, the overlords of the wood-based materials industry, and the number one person in the talisman industry. The tables in front of them were filled with delicacies that ordinary people could only dream of. However, at the moment their faces were gloomy, and they had no appetite at all. Why don't you say something? After all, this is the 108th gathering of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's Taiji Civilization branch. The one who spoke was the boss of the elixirs, Yao Bailing. The overlord of the wood-based materials industry, Xiao Qian, laughed self-deprecatingly. I'd rather not have this gathering. In order to hide their identities, they usually did not gather, pretending that they did not know each other. Now, they had no choice but to gather because the Taiji sect master had returned. Most importantly, not only had he returned, but he had also boldly opened up the Taiji sect's treasury. How can you still keep your composure? The number one person in the talisman industry, Miss Bao, slammed the table angrily. Do you know that I've spent 3 trillion to buy low-level and mid-level talismans without restraint? Currently, I've sold less than 30 billion. If I can't sell the rest, I can only die. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce would not forgive him for such a huge loss. Xiao Qian laughed bitterly. You only spent 3 trillion. Do you know that I invested 10 trillion divine stones? Of which 3 trillion was borrowed from usury from the black market. Now I've only sold them for 100 billion. If the rest is wasted in my hands, my wife and I will be treated as slaves in the black market to pay off our debts. Yao Bailing's expression was calm as she casually said, My medicinal pill business, because the amount of medicinal pills is too large, for the sake of this hype, I accumulated more than 100 trillion. Now, I haven't even gotten back 100 million god stones. If you guys are so anxious, won't I burn to death? Xiao Qian and Miss Bao understood what Yao Bailing was implying. They asked in unison, Brother Yao, do you have any good ideas? Yao Bailing shook his head. With the boldness and wisdom of the new Taiji sect master, what good ideas can we have now? I'm afraid that he can see through any plan with a glance. Hearing this, Xiao Qian and Miss Bao were greatly disappointed. Xiao Qian looked regretful. I was too careless. I thought that the new sect master was just a brat who had cultivated for less than 100 years. Coincidentally, the Taiji civilization encountered a calamity like the humans and demons, so I thought of making a fortune. Who knew that the new sect master was not only extremely intelligent, but he was also extremely bold. Opening up the Taiji sect's foundation for hundreds of millions of years is something that none of the previous sect masters dared to do. Miss Bao thumped her chest and sighed. If we are not careful, we might really fall into his hands. Fall? Haha, that might not be the case. Yao Bailing said with a faint smile. Although I don't have any good ideas, I still have an open plan. Xiao Qian and Miss Bao said, Since we are already here, let's not hide it anymore. If you have any ideas, tell us quickly so that we can discuss them together. Yao Bailing smiled confidently. It's very simple. We are merchants, so we should naturally do what merchants should do, exchange of equal value. Taiji faction. 5 days had passed since the opening of the Taiji faction's treasury. A group of higher-ups of the Taiji faction was in the Taiji palace, listening to the Yinyang elders' survey of the market prices. The price of the Bodhi elixir has dropped from its peak of 300 divine stones to 150. The price of the Swift Wind Talisman has dropped from its peak of 1,000 divine stones to 700 divine stones. Su Yu listened patiently. After a long while, he said, There are only 10,000 types of goods that have dropped in price, and 90,000 types of goods that have not dropped in price. In other words, the Taiji civilization's market has been infiltrated by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. More than 90% of our economic lifelines have been secretly controlled by someone. His words made the old woman and the Earth Elders feel embarrassed. Mo Xiaochai said, "It's all because of that old fellow, the former faction master, who advocated attracting merchants from the outside world and gave them preferential treatment. That allowed many people from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce to take advantage of the loopholes. He was already dead, so it was meaningless to pursue his responsibility. The former faction master's actions could not be said to be wrong. At least, he had strengthened the prosperity of the Taiji civilization. However, this prosperity was only an illusion. Just like now, when the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce wanted to cause trouble, it brought about devastating destruction to the Taiji civilization. The disadvantages outweighed the advantages. The former faction master's decision in this regard had seriously lacked consideration. All right, remember all the names of these people who maintain the high prices, Suyu said calmly. Seeing the dangers of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, everyone agreed. If they survived this ordeal, they would definitely uproot the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Just as their discussion reached a critical point, a Yin-Yang elder came to report. Reporting to the faction master, the representative of the market, Yao Bailing, has come to see the faction master. I won't see him, Suyu said without hesitation. If a mere merchant could see the faction master whenever he wanted, it would make others look down on the faction master's abilities. It would also make the living creatures of the Taiji civilization doubt the faction's ability to maintain the prices of goods. Otherwise, why would he need to see the representative of the market? The Yin-Yang elder hesitated. Yao Bailing said that it is regarding the human demon and wants to make a deal with the faction master. There is no need to discuss it. Tell Yao Bailing to immediately restore the elixir prices to normal levels, and we will let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, get lost immediately. Suyu did not need to use his brain to know what Yao Bailing wanted to talk about. Using the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce to deal with the human demon as a condition in exchange for the Taiji civilization stopping opening the treasury. Yao Bailing probably felt that this was an overt plot, and Suyu had to accept it regardless of whether he wanted to or not. He had to make a choice. Unfortunately, Suyu had a third choice. Outside the Taiji faction, in the waiting room, under the respectful gazes of a few Taiji faction disciples, Yao Bailing proudly tasted his tea. The Yin-Yang elder, who was in charge of receiving them, had a gentle and even humble attitude. Yao Bailing was an important figure that he could never hope to reach. Now, he even had the right to speak to the Taiji faction on equal terms. Shopkeeper Yao, I wonder if what you said about dealing with the human demon is true? Yao Bailing looked at him indifferently, calmly saying, These matters are not for a Yin-Yang elder like you to ask, right? The Yin-Yang elder's expression turned stiff, and he shut his mouth in embarrassment. Although he was a little unhappy that Yao Bailing had thrown away his pride, with Yao Bailing's current status, he could not do anything about it. He could only sit alone resentfully, his expression respectful, not daring to offend Yao Bailing. Suddenly, the disciple who had gone to report returned. Yao Bailing was holding a contract that she had drafted calmly. She said leisurely, Your faction master must have made a decision. Lead the way. Chapter 2000. Yao Bailing glanced at him and said indifferently, What do you think? The reporting disciple said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, My words carry little weight and I dare not speak carelessly. I can only pass on the sect master's words. The sect master said that you have two choices. First, immediately restore the pill to its original price and let bygones be bygones. Second, if you are unwilling, immediately scram. Impudent. Yao Bailing wasn't angry, but he was still imposing. The disciple's expression was calm. Shopkeeper Yao, what's the point of being angry at a disciple like me? I'm just repeating the sect leader's words. Shopkeeper Yao, please make your own choice. Yao Bailing was furious and said, Could it be that your sect master has no foresight? I'm here to help you deal with the human devil. The disciple did not say a word and quietly waited for Yao Bailing's reply. The yin-yang elder who had been bullied was secretly gloating. In the end, the sect master was still the best. He had been so arrogant and dignified, but in the end, he didn't even have the right to see the sect master. How ironic! Now that he understood the sect master's attitude towards him, Elder Yin and Yang was filled with confidence. He put on a fake smile and said, Manager Medicine, our Tai Chi sect's guest hall doesn't lack tea. Take your time to think about it. I guarantee you'll drink your fill. Hearing Zhen Zhen's mockery, Yao Bailing became even more furious. It was a plan that was almost in the bag, but before he could say a word, he was ordered to scram. To think that he had acted mysterious in front of his colleagues, acting as if he had a card up his sleeve. Now, he didn't know how to explain it when he went back. Don't be too pleased with yourself. This is just the beginning. I don't believe that your Tai Chi sect can last until the end. Yao Bailing felt deflated. She swung her sleeves and left. Elder Yin Yang said eccentrically, Manager Medicine, I won't see you out, I won't see you out. Seeing Yao Bailing leave, the Yin Yang elder wiped away the smile on his face and revealed a look of hatred and disdain. Tui, who do you think you are? Under the propaganda of the Tai Chi sect, everyone from the disciples to Elder Tian had a fundamental understanding of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. His disgust for them was not just a little. However, just as Yao Bailing had said, it was still unknown whether the Tai Chi sect would be able to last until the end. Another 5 days passed. When the upper echelons of the Taiji sect met, the atmosphere was much more pessimistic than 5 days ago. There is less than half of the inventory left, and less than 20% of the prices in the market have returned to normal. 80% of the prices are still high. Many shops would rather close temporarily than lower their prices. Hearing the conclusion, the group of Earth Elders was deeply worried. The invisible confrontation had been going on for a full 10 days, but the prices in the market showed no signs of dropping. The new batch of daily necessities would need at least 20 days to enter the market and impact the current market price. Now, the danger was apparent. What's the report from the people you sent out? Suyu asked calmly. Apart from the group of people that Suyu had secretly contacted, he had also sent a large number of yin-yang elders and tens of thousands of disciples to the nearby civilizations to purchase daily necessities. Due to time constraints, they were destined to not be able to travel to civilizations that were too far away. They could only search nearby. Clan leader, according to the information we received, less than 10% of the people found anything, and they were all found in the desolate areas that have yet to reach the level of a star civilization. In total, it's less than what the Taiji civilization consumes in a day. A day's consumption was a drop in the bucket. As for the other people, the daily necessities of the civilizations they went to were secretly purchased by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce as early as a year ago. They are still purchasing them at a high price. Basically, they have snatched all the new resources that enter the market. In other words, the majority of the people had gained nothing. Everyone's hearts sank slowly. We can only hold on for another 10 days at most. After 10 days, the entire treasury of the Taiji faction will be used up. By then, if we can't suppress the prices in the market, I'm afraid the daily consumption of the Taiji faction won't be enough, the old woman elder said in a low voice. Right now, they were at a critical juncture. If they didn't take action now, the Taiji faction would fall into a dilemma. At that time, the faction would be full of complaints and doubts about the ability of Suyu, the new clan leader. Before the Taiji civilization could fall into chaos and decline, the Taiji faction would fall apart first. After a moment of silence, the old woman said, "Why don't we use our strength to forcibly seize the resources of the big shots of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce? Su Yu didn't speak. The Taiji civilization was too peaceful. Even Elder Tian could say such things. He asked, "If we use force, won't the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce?" "Based on my understanding of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, there will be a strong man overseeing the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce in every region. If he takes action, who will deal with him?" This. The old woman fell into deep thought again. Mo Xiaochai was also gradually losing her patience because of her anxiety. She said, "What should we do? Do we just watch the situation get more and more dangerous?" Some of the elders also began to doubt Su Yu's initial decision. Although they would slowly decline without doing anything, it was better than causing internal chaos. Most importantly, the external help that the clan leader had mentioned had yet to be found. Su Yu said calmly, "Let the people who are sent out continue to search for resources further away. On the other hand, try to contact the merchants you are familiar with and ask for their help. If this matter is resolved, you will pay them back double." The former did not hold out much hope. The latter still had the possibility of trying. They were all high-ranking members of the Taiji faction, and there were many merchants who tried to curry favor with them. At this moment, the Taiji faction was in need. If they were asked to take out their private stash to alleviate the current crisis, they might agree. After all, the clan leader had personally promised that they would pay them back double after the matter was resolved. Any shrewd merchant would choose to take the risk if they could double their profits in a short period of time. "I will act now. I will also contact the merchants I am familiar with." Su Yu thought for a moment, then secretly left the Taiji faction and went to the Genuine Jade Store. Boss Peng of the Genuine Jade Store was one of the few big bosses in the Taiji faction. He had been in business for many years and had a high net worth. The amount of resources he controlled was already an astronomical figure. If he was willing to help them, he would be able to alleviate the shortage of resources. "Who are you looking for?" The Genuine Jade Store was now overcrowded. As one of the few stores that obeyed the edict of the Taiji faction and voluntarily restored the normal prices, the waitresses were a little busy. Su Yu pulled on his bamboo hat and said, "Is Boss Peng here?" The waitress looked at Su Yu suspiciously and asked, "Who are you?" Su Yu said calmly, "A friend of Boss Peng." After a moment of silence, the waitress said, "Then please wait for a moment. Boss Peng has been very busy lately. Many bosses have come to see him." Nowadays, the prices of goods in the Taiji civilization were abnormal, and people were anxious. It was normal for bosses to visit each other. Suddenly, Boss Peng walked out of the guest hall of the inner yard with a group of people. Su Yu glanced at them casually and frowned slightly. Those people were all famous businessmen of the Taiji civilization. Su Yu even knew one of them. It was Yao Beiling's right-hand shopkeeper, Li Weidong. Li Weidong's face was full of arrogance as he was politely sent off by Boss Peng. Watching them leave, Boss Peng let out a long sigh. As he was about to go back, the waitress said respectfully, "Boss Peng, this person said he is your friend and wants to see you." Boss Peng turned to look at Su Yu, who had his face covered by the bamboo hat, and asked in confusion, "Who are you?" Su Yu said nothing, and the faction master's token flashed across his palm. Boss Peng's pupils shrank as he said, "Faction? Boss Peng, you have a short memory. You even forgot about me." Su Yu interrupted him in time. Boss Peng understood and patted his head. "Oh, it's you, Boss Song. Look at my poor memory. Please come in." The two of them entered the backyard. The waitress at the front desk stared at them and quietly crushed a communication jade pendant. Inside the secret chamber, Boss Peng turned around and immediately knelt down on one knee. "Greetings, faction master." Su Yu waved his hand and sat down casually. "You don't have to be so formal with me." Boss Peng stood up but did not dare to sit down. Staring at Su Yu, who had taken off his bamboo hat, he felt that everything was unreal. The owner of the wine shop in the past had now become the faction master of the Tai Chi faction. "Welcome, faction master. May I ask if you have any advice for me?" Su Yu shook his head. I can't say that I have any advice for you. I'm sure you have some guesses as to why I am here. Boss Pring looked troubled. He sighed bitterly and did not say a word. Boss Pring, please feel free to speak your mind. I, Su, am not an unreasonable person. Boss Ping said. Who was the person who left just now? Do you know him? Yes, he is one of Yao Beiling's people, Su Yu said. So, your trouble is with them? Boss Ping said helplessly. Yes. Li Weitong was ordered by Yao Beiling to ask me to do two things. First, immediately raise the price of goods to a high level. Second, I am not allowed to secretly provide daily necessities to the Tai Chi faction. So, you agreed? Su Yu stared at him calmly. Boss Ping smiled bitterly. I'm sure Faction Master knows about Yao Beiling's background. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. I am just a small businessman. Many of my sources of goods cannot bypass the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. If you don't agree, my career as a businessman will be over. Hearing this, Su Yu was calm, without the slightest hint of anger. Businessmen valued profit over justice. No matter how good their relationship was, they would still choose profit over justice in times of crisis. Moreover, he had only met Boss Ping once. Why would he force him? I have been rude. Farewell. Su Yu put on his bamboo hat and strode away without any hesitation. Boss Ping chased after him and said, Faction Master, please understand my difficulties. If it were possible, I would never agree. I understand, Su Yu said calmly. He could understand Boss Ping's difficulties, but if he could get over this, he would ask Boss Ping to understand his actions in the future. He would not deliberately hate Boss Ping, but he would not forgive him either. After returning to the Tai Chi faction empty-handed, the elders who had asked for help from the bosses they were familiar with also returned. Looking at their faces, Su Yu already had an answer in his heart. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had not only searched the True Jade store, but many other shops as well. He would make up for it tomorrow. Chapter 2001. 2 days later, all the elders returned and gathered together to summarize their experiences. The old woman felt embarrassed and sighed. I searched all the shop owners I knew, and only a few old friends of thousands of years took out their entire wealth, but it wasn't even enough for 1 day of the Tai Chi civilization's consumption. Sigh, Elder Tian was lucky. The shop owners I befriended in the past deliberately hid when they knew I was coming to visit. They didn't even want to see me. One of the Earth Elders, who hadn't earned anything, looked ashamed and helpless. I thought I was the only one who encountered such a situation, another Earth Elder said. Me too. They didn't even want to see me. I boldly barged into the secret room of a shop owner I knew to negotiate face to face, but they sent me away with the excuse that their resources had been bought. How infuriating! As they summarized their experiences, they realized that everyone's experiences were different. Do they think that the Tai Chi faction can't make it? Some of the Earth Elders said angrily. Only Su Yu knew the real reason. He said, Remember all the names of those who are still willing to help the Tai Chi faction. This was the most difficult time for the Tai Chi faction. Those who were willing to help were the most valuable. As for the others, you don't have to hate them, but remember their names one by one. In the end, they concluded that they could only find 1 day's worth of assistance from the various shop owners. Coupled with the resources they had bought from various civilizations, they could only use it for 2 more days. 12 days had already passed, and the Tai Chi faction could only hold on for about 10 more days. However, the situation didn't stop there. 3 days later, more than half of the shops that had lowered their prices had, for some unknown reason, reverted to their abnormal prices. The direct result was that the martial artists' reliance on the Tai Chi faction's resources had increased. As a result, the Tai Chi faction's daily outflow of resources had increased by more than 10%. The higher-ups were barely able to remain calm, but the Yin Yang elders and disciples at the bottom were panicking. 2 days later, A rumor suddenly appeared in the martial artists' market. The Tai Chi faction's treasury was almost empty, with less than 5 days' worth of storage left. The prices in the market would continue to skyrocket. As soon as the rumor spread, people panicked. Many martial artists could only buy what they needed for that day. They had no confidence about the next day or even the day after. Therefore, a small group of martial artists knew that the prices in the market were abnormal, but they still reluctantly bought them. This was to prevent the prices from skyrocketing again 5 days later. At that time, they wouldn't be able to buy anything even if they wanted to. The entire Taiji civilization was in a state of panic. From the martial artists on the outside to the grassroots of the Taiji sect, they were all panicking. There were only 5 days left. The upper echelons of the Taiji sect could no longer sit still. They had no choice but to gather every day to discuss. Because of the shops that lowered their prices and the ancient era's prices rising again, many cultivators are buying more varieties from us, causing our consumption to increase greatly. I estimate that our current inventory will not last 3 days. 3 days was the limit of the Taiji sect. Suyu frowned slightly. Only 3 days left? 2 days less than he had expected. Pay close attention to the inventory, Suyu said. 1 day later, the inventory's consumption was less than 2 days' worth. Some of the Taiji sect's yin-yang elders and disciples were no longer in the mood to focus on stabilizing the prices of goods. Instead, they were actively thinking of ways to prepare for the huge shock that was about to come after the Taiji sect's inventory emptied. The cultivators' purchases became even more frenzied. This was because the prices of the goods in the cultivators' city square had already started to show signs of increasing. Another day passed. Su Yu and the other higher-ups stood in front of the warehouse, their expressions calm. The warehouse that had once been full was now only a corner of it. Those were only enough for tomorrow. On the last day, the few remaining resources were distributed to the yin-yang elders' mansions. Faction Master, if you have any backup plans, please use them. There is no time left. Emo Xiaochai's expression was calm. Not only had the prices of goods not decreased as expected, but they had also skyrocketed to a new height. This was especially true for necessities like elixirs, which had skyrocketed to 20 times the usual price. Such crazy behavior seemed to be mocking the Taiji sect. The group of Earth Elders looked at Suyu. Back then, he had solemnly vowed to open the treasury. If he did not have any backup plans, he would have consigned the Taiji sect to eternal damnation. These are my personal resources. They can support us for another day. Suyu took out his own space storage device. He had obtained the storage ring of the Sword Alliance Master and almost all the resources of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, a 4-star civilization. It was barely enough for a 5-star civilization's living beings to use for a day. The group of Earth Elders was moved. Suyu had not been in the Taiji sect for long, so he had not received many benefits from the Taiji sect. The resources before them must have been accumulated by Suyu in the past. Now, for the sake of the Taiji civilization, he had voluntarily offered them. The group of Earth Elders sighed. After struggling for a while, 10 of them took out their many years' worth of treasures. All right, I will take a gamble as well. Emo Xiaochai looked at Suyu deeply. She believed that Suyu would not speak without thinking. He must have his own confidence. Thus, they had finally gathered enough resources for 2 days. On the second day, the resources were distributed as scheduled, but the speed at which they were distributed was obviously slower. The third day was also the last day. The Taiji sect could no longer sustain itself. That night, in a luxurious restaurant, a group of pot-bellied businessmen were chatting happily with each other. Haha, according to the information obtained by our internal spies, the Taiji sect's storage was completely used up 2 days ago. These 2 days, they have been relying on the faction master and the elders' personal storage to support themselves. However, they have also said that they have reached their limit. According to reliable information, They will not be able to take out even a single elixir tomorrow, Yao Beiling said leisurely as he tasted the famous wine. Xiao Qian could not help but laugh. The Taiji sect's faction master is taking things too seriously. He thought that he could oppose the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce with just his storage. Now, not only did he not manage to stabilize the prices, he even got himself into trouble. Miss Bao, who was in the talisman industry, could not help but look forward to it. I have already ordered all the shops to make preparations. When the market opens tomorrow, the prices of all talismans will be doubled. I have also made the same preparations. The past 20 days have been torture. I was really worried that I would lose everything. From tomorrow onwards, the prices of all elixirs will increase. We must earn back all the losses from the past 20 days. Yao Beiling's lips curled into a meaningful smile. Do you think that the Taiji sect's faction master will suddenly come to us tonight to beg? Xiao Qian and Miss Bao both looked proud and elated. When Yao Beiling had gone to the Taiji sect, she had wanted to have a good discussion. However, the Taiji sect's faction master had been so arrogant that he had asked Yao Beiling to get lost. Now that the dust had settled, Yao Beiling was the one who had the last laugh. She was truly shameless. Who can say for sure? Maybe the Taiji sect's faction master is thinking of an excuse. Xiao Qian laughed. Yao Beiling's eyes were filled with disdain. If the Taiji sect's faction master is willing to agree to my request, he can get rid of the human demon. But now? Not only is the hidden danger of the human demon still present, but the Taiji sect is also facing the danger of falling apart internally. You are too clever for your own good. His tone made it seem as if Su Yu was in the wrong, not the profiteers. The next day, the day before the market opened, the hearts of the Taiji civilization's martial artists were affected. Yesterday, the Taiji civilization had begun to spread the news that the Taiji sect's treasury had been depleted and could no longer satisfy their daily need. This rumor had spread like wildfire, and most of the martial artists believed it without a doubt. Because the Taiji sect had not only given out fewer types of resources, but the quantity had also decreased. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the Taiji sect had reached its limit. From today onwards, the Taiji sect would no longer be able to give out resources. In the past, the residences of the great Yin-Yang elders would have opened to sell resources at a fair price. But now, all of their doors were tightly shut, and there was no movement. It was completely silent. This undoubtedly made the martial artists even more certain that the Taiji sect had reached its limit. Dong! Dong! All of a sudden, the loud and clear sound of the opening bell resounded throughout Taiji City. The martial artists entered the market to buy the necessities they needed, hoping to get lucky. However, what made them despair was that not only did the prices not decrease, but they had also doubled compared to the day before the market had closed. The frightening prices caused the martial artists to fall into despair. However, they had no choice but to buy. They had to bear with the pain and pay sky-high prices to buy necessities that were supposed to be cheap. The sound of cursing and fighting to buy blended together, and to the people of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, it was like the sound of nature. Haha, I love it when you ants are cursing, yet you have no choice but to buy. Yao Beiling was in high spirits. Xiao Qian was also in high spirits as he watched the endless martial artists swarm into the market. It was as if he was watching an endless amount of wealth enter their pockets at a shocking speed. Miss Bao stared at the silent Yin-Yang elders' residences and smiled without saying a word. It was time to say goodbye to the Taiji sect. After today, the Taiji sect was destined to fall into a long-term decline. If they had known this would happen, why did they do it in the first place? However, right at that moment, a strange situation occurred in the market. Some martial artists seemed to have discovered something, and they frantically gathered in certain places, including Wenzhou and a few shops that listened to the orders of the Taiji sect and sold their goods at fair prices. They suddenly sold goods at fair prices that were rich in resources and a complete range of species. All of a sudden, the entire martial artists' market was stirred up, and they all gathered in a few places. Noticing this, Yao Beiling's eyes darkened slightly. What's going on with those shops? Didn't you warn them? Her assistant, Li Weitong, who was behind her, furrowed his brows. Those shops have a deep relationship with the Taiji sect, so they didn't care about our warning. Yao Beiling said in a low voice, "What I mean is that the resources they are selling are clearly not in line with their industries. For example, Wenjiu, which Su Yu had founded in the past, was originally a wine shop, but now it was selling everything, including women's undergarments. It was a complete range of products that covered almost all industries. It was the same for the other shops, and they were all rich in resources. Could this be the Taiji sect's counterattack before they die?" Xiao Qian pondered, but he wasn't too nervous. "Don't worry, with their remaining resources, I'm afraid they can only sell for 2 to 4 hours. However, 2 hours passed. Chapter 2002. Their calm expressions finally showed signs of wavering. Yao Beiling calmed herself down and said, "Don't panic. Let's wait and see. From the information we have, Taiji sect has already used up all the resources they can use. It's impossible for them to continuously replenish the market." Another 2 hours passed. Almost all the cultivators noticed the appearance of these fair-price shops and rushed over to buy them. The shops of the 3 tycoons were deserted, and no one showed any interest in them. Only the 20 times the usual high price tag fluttered in the wind, exceptionally eye-catching. Finally, Yao Beiling could no longer sit still and said, "Let's go ask the wine to see what exactly is going on." Li Weitong immediately went to Wenjiu. With great difficulty, he managed to squeeze through the crowd to the entrance of Wenjiu restaurant. Looking inside, he saw many unfamiliar people with low cultivation levels selling all kinds of things. 7 or 8 yin-yang elders were patrolling the area to ensure that no one would disturb them. He was secretly shocked. He went to the other shops, but the result was the same. Under the protection of the Taiji sect, a group of unfamiliar creatures continuously sold goods. After observing 8 families, the results were the same. Li Weitong had a bad premonition and quickly returned to report to Yao Beiling. Hearing this, Yao Beiling's expression darkened. If that's the case, then it is indeed the Taiji sect's doing. I don't know where they found reinforcement. Xiao Qian's heart skipped a beat. He felt a sense of panic, as if he had stepped off a cliff. Where did the Taiji sect get its allies from? Even if they did, how could they mobilize so many resources? I don't know. Yao Beiling had a feeling that they were one step behind. Have the intelligence department do their best to investigate. We must get to the bottom of the situation. The whole day passed. What Yao Beiling and the others were worried about happened. Those unknown people had a lot of low-level and mid-level resources. They sold for an entire day without any signs of a shortage. Their identities were still unknown. It was as if they had appeared out of thin air in the primal chaos civilization overnight, leaving no traces behind. The next day, they were still the same, with countless resources. The 3rd day, the 4th day, the 5th day. Finally, Xiao Qian and Bao Qian fell into panic and urgently convened a meeting of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. In another 5 days, a new batch of daily necessities will flow into the market. At that time, the market will be full of goods, and the warriors won't be able to buy them from us at a high price. What should we do? While they were panicking, wasn't Yao Beiling the same? Unexpectedly, the situation was developing in an extremely bad direction. Have you found out who they are? Yao Beiling asked. I found some clues. The person in charge of intelligence said, they aren't citizens of the Taiji civilization, but an organization that has gained some fame recently. They're called Ding. Cauldron? Everyone was unfamiliar with this name. They had never heard of this organization before. The person in charge of intelligence said, Ding is active within the territory of the 4-star civilization, the Dark Star civilization. In just a few short years, they've conquered all the civilizations within their territory. Their organization isn't very strict, but they're rather united. What do you mean? Yao Bailing frowned. Small organizations that rose up like this usually did not go far, because once they grew stronger, they would inevitably cause internal divisions due to interests, and eventually fall apart. There had to be a reason why they could remain united even after unifying the entire 4-star civilization. There's a mysterious commander among them who calls himself Cauldron Venerable. He's very mysterious, and we can't find out his identity at all. The only thing we know is that the core members of the Cauldron organization are very respectful and obedient to Cauldron Venerable. Therefore, the Cauldron Venerable is quite united around him. Hearing this, Yao Bailing's brows relaxed. Get ready to practice. I'd like to talk to Cauldron Venerable alone, Yao Bailing said. Normally, he wouldn't even bother to talk to a new organization at the level of a 4-star civilization. But now the other party seemed too important. Yes, Li Weitong said. At the Tai Chi faction, Su Yu stood on the highest peak of the faction master, looking down at the entire Tai Chi city. He nodded slightly. Cauldron Venerable, I'm afraid the resources we've gathered won't last long. Behind him was the Deputy Cauldron Venerable, the King of Darkness. The person Su Yu contacted was none other than Ding. In recent years, Ding had gradually gained control of all the civilizations within the territory of the Dark Star civilization. After receiving Su Yu's order, it immediately gathered a large number of resources from the local area. Fortunately, the daily necessities weren't of a high grade, so even 1-star civilizations could provide them. Ding started working, gathering the resources collected from all sides to King of Darkness. King of Darkness used the inter-civilization transportation portal and finally arrived in front of Su Yu in the evening 5 days ago. I don't need you to last too long. Another 5 days will be enough, Su Yu said. He thought to himself that his decision to establish the Cauldron organization was indeed correct. If he hadn't used the power of the Cauldron to replenish the goods in time, the business war with the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce would have been a complete failure. This made Su Yu even more determined to continue developing the Cauldron. Get the Cauldron ready to accept the closed shops in 5 days, Su Yu said with a touch of coldness. It was time to settle the score. The parasites hidden in the Tai Chi civilization had to be uprooted completely. By the way, Cauldron Venerable, a person in the elixir industry named Yao Bailing wants to talk to you face to face. Su Yu shook his head with a smile and said, Tell him that the opportunity has passed. He had given Yao Bailing a chance. As long as the prices were restored immediately, he would let bygones be bygones. However, Yao Bailing didn't cherish it. Now that he wanted to talk again, he had lost the bargaining chip. Okay. Not long after, Yao Bailing got the King of Darkness's reply from Li Weitong. Hearing the familiar words, Yao Bailing looked unwilling. It seems like the Cauldron has a special relationship with the Tai Chi faction master. This path could no longer be taken. Xiao Qian and Bao Qianjin, who were sitting opposite, were even more pale. They had no hope of making a comeback. They were all doomed. Trillions of things were in their hands, and they couldn't sell them even if they wanted to in the future. Tai Chi faction master, you have gone too far. After a long silence, Yao Bailing's eyes were filled with hostility. You put me in a dead end, so I will make you regret it at all costs. Xiao Qian and Bao Qianjin understood Yao Bailing's meaning at the same time. They said in surprise, You want to? What else can I do? At most, I will spend some money. It is better than being doomed eternally, right? Yao Bailing said with a faint look. What about you? What will you choose? Xiao Qian and Bao Qianjin fell silent at the same time. 5 days later, when the resources brought by the Cauldron were about to be exhausted, new necessities flowed into the market one after another. The output was huge, and the price of daily necessities plummeted in just a few breaths. It was now 20% lower than usual. The shops of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce were no longer able to affect the market, so they had to follow the trend and sell a large amount of resources. The huge amount of resources impacted the necessities market again, and the price fell to half of the usual price. In order to quickly earn back their money, the merchants who stocked up on goods had no choice but to do so, even though they knew that they were making a huge loss. Of course, to prevent the market price from being too low and causing another negative impact, the Tai Chi sect appeared and bought them wantonly. In just 3 days, they had used the money they earned from selling the resources in the treasury to buy resources. Not only did they return to their peak condition, but their total amount had also doubled. All of this was thanks to the profiteers who had shed blood and tears. In the main hall of the Tai Chi sect, after a month of depression, Elder Tian and Elder D were in high spirits and chatted with each other with relaxed expressions. I never thought that the Tai Chi sect's countless years of accumulation would actually double in just 1 month. An elder sighed. He still felt that it was unreal. Heh, what we have is a loss to the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. This time, the wealth that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce invested can be considered epic. It is normal for the Tai Chi sect's resources to double. Normal? If the sect master did not dispatch a surprise force to catch the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce off guard, what situation would we be in now? When they heard this, everyone felt deep respect. Although they did not say it out loud, they actually looked down on the new sect master. His cultivation was low, he was young, and he had no experience. How could he lead the Tai Chi sect? It was all because of the inexplicable qualification to be the sect master. But now, in the battle against the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, they gradually realized how extraordinary Su Yu was. Outstanding foresight, powerful courage, and unknown connections. Although it was far from making up for the lack of a sect master, it was enough for them to accept this new sect master. His abilities were certain. Before long, Su Yu arrived. After a moment of silence, he said, "Now that the market prices have returned to normal, the worries have been eliminated. However, this is only a temporary solution. If anyone has any good suggestions, feel free to raise them." Hearing this, many of the elders felt proud and elated. The time to settle the score had arrived. The merchants who maliciously hyped up the market should be punished with a fine so that they will remember this lesson forever. We should set up a market supervisory clerk association to check the market prices at any time. Once we find that someone is hyping up the market, we will be able to be alert in advance. We will not suddenly fall into danger like we are now. We should impose more taxes on them so that they will not dare to recklessly hype up the market. Everyone spoke one after another, and all of them expressed their valuable opinions. Many of them were desirable. However, Su Yu listened silently without saying a word. Elder Tian and the old woman's eyes flashed. "Does the sect master have any plans?" Many elders immediately stopped their discussion and looked at Su Yu. Su Yu calmly looked around at them. "Your suggestions are very good, but you have all forgotten one thing." As expected, the sect master had reservations about their suggestions. "Sect master, please speak clearly." Su Yu said word by word, "If you do not kill the snake, you will suffer." None of their suggestions dared to kill the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce in one fell swoop. Whether it was fines, the establishment of a supervisory mechanism, or taxes, to the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, they were all just restraints. When the time was right, they could still cause trouble again. At that time, the Tai Chi sect might not be able to suppress them again. "Sect master, you mean?" The old woman became serious. Chapter 2003. "Master, I don't think that's appropriate. Judging from the previous performance, at least 70% of the shops in the market are controlled by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. If they were all expelled, who would replace them? Wouldn't this cause a shortage of secondary goods and cause chaos? The old woman voiced her concern. Suyu looked at her with admiration. After this incident, they finally started to pay more attention to business. There's nothing inappropriate about it. The Cauldron will take over their positions. Instead of handing over the economic lifeline to outsiders, it's better to hand it over to our own people. They had seen the Cauldron's performance. Moreover, it had a close relationship with the master. It was trustworthy. Can the Cauldron accept so many shops? Some elders expressed their doubts. Suyu smiled faintly. Don't worry. They can do it. Next, the Tai Chi faction announced a piece of shocking news. The rent of all the shops in the Tai Chi city would increase by 10,000 times next year. The Tai Chi faction owned all the shops in the market, and they had the right to increase the rent at will. What? 10,000 times? In the authentic jade store, Boss Peng's heart almost jumped out of his chest. The rent of the authentic jade store was currently 10 million divine stones per year. If it increased by 10,000 times, it would be 100 billion. 100 billion. The authentic jade store didn't even sell that much every year, let alone profit. This was clearly forcing all the shops to leave. Is the news true? Boss Peng asked the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper nodded affirmatively. The Tai Chi faction posted the notice personally. Except for a small number of shops, the rent of the rest of the shops will increase by 10,000 times. The rest of the shops? Boss Peng's heart was as clear as a mirror. That small portion of the shops should be the ones that followed the Taiji sect and actively stabilized their prices. Now that the Tai Chi faction had calmed down, they were starting to clear the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Isn't this too cruel? Boss Peng was anxious. He had expected that the Tai Chi faction would definitely take action against the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, but he hadn't expected Suyu to be so decisive. He wanted to drive out the entire Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Although the authentic Jade store wasn't part of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, it had sided with the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce when the Tai Chi faction was in danger. No. I have to see the master. Boss Peng had been rooted in the Tai Chi faction for many years. However, when he arrived at the Taiji sect's guest hall, his eyelids couldn't help but twitch. He saw a sea of people with gifts in their hands waiting in the waiting room. Without a doubt, they were in the same situation as Boss Peng. They had brought gifts to plead for leniency. On the other hand, Boss Peng was empty-handed and could not bring out anything. Suddenly, Boss Peng remembered that a new batch of acquired Sky Origin crystals had arrived recently, and they were worth no less than 100 billion. Feeling a pang in his heart, he separated it and placed it in an independent spatial storage ring. After waiting patiently for 3 days and 3 nights, Boss Peng finally had the chance to come to the main hall where the sect master worked. Suyu's nonchalant voice could be heard from the other side of the phone. The increase in rent is the decision of the Tai Chi faction. If you think it's unreasonable, you can look for another civilization to develop. By the way, take the gift with you. I won't accept it. Not long after, a gloomy boss left with his head hung low. Boss Peng's heart skipped a beat and he felt uneasy. Next, Boss Peng walked in cautiously with a deep sense of unease. She saw that Suyu was leaning over the table. With a gentle stroke of his brush, he crossed out a name on the booklet. He looked up and saw that it was Boss Peng. He nodded slightly. What brings you here, Boss Peng? Please take a seat. Boss Peng stood respectfully, not daring to stand. He said, I know that the sect master needs acquired Sky Origin crystals, so I found a way to get a batch. I hope the sect master will accept it. He placed the spatial storage device on the table. Suyu glanced at it and said, Boss Peng, are you here for the rent as well? Upon hearing that, Boss Peng knew that the moment to decide his fate had arrived. He hurriedly said, Sect Master, please be merciful. I was forced by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce and had no choice but to comply. Suyu did not care. Boss Peng was afraid of the sanctions of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, but was he not afraid of the punishment of the Tai Chi faction? In that war without gunpowder, Boss Peng had chosen his side with his actions. Of course, unlike other businessmen who followed the trend to create hype, Boss Peng was initially willing to cooperate with the Tai Chi faction and take the initiative to calm the prices. It was just that his stance was not firm enough. Such a businessman could not be killed in one fell swoop. I understand you, but please understand my position. As the Tai Chi faction master, I should charge you 10,000 times the rent, but for personal reasons, I will exempt you from 100 years of rent. After 100 years, everything will be done according to the rules. With that, Su Yu had done his best. Boss Peng's face turned pale. He only had 100 years. After 100 years, he would have to leave the Tai Chi civilization. His heart was bitter, not knowing whether to be happy or sad. Take the gift back, I won't accept it. Su Yu sent him off briefly. Boss Peng did not feel good. He clutched the storage ring and left the Tai Chi faction in a daze. As soon as he stepped out of the door, he met two familiar owners. Unlike the gloomy faces of other businessmen, the two of them were glowing and in high spirits. Haha, Boss Zhao, the sect master gave me the normal rent and gave me 10 times the price of the shop for free for 100 years. I am completely confident that I can become number one in the industry within 100 years. I received the same favor. I have to say that the new sect master is a man who values kindness. I only did my best to support him during the price war last month. I did not expect him to give me more than 100 times the compensation. What they lost was just a little less of the black-hearted money they earned in a month. But now, the compensation they received was 100 times that of the black-hearted money. It was easy to imagine how happy they were. Suddenly, the two of them saw Boss Peng and went forward to greet him. Boss Peng, congratulations. You must have received a reward from the sect master, right? The scale of the Zhen Chui store has expanded by more than 10 times. How enviable! Only the Tai Chi faction had statistics on the specific details of the price increase of the shop. The businessmen who were involved in it did not know much about it. The two of them only knew that Boss Peng, like them, had taken the initiative to stabilize the prices. That was why they said that. Boss Peng looked embarrassed, and a great sense of regret welled up in his heart. In the past, Boss Peng did not take the two of them seriously at all. But now they had received 100 times the compensation, and their future development would far surpass his. Moreover, in 100 years, he would have to leave the Tai Chi civilization and go to another civilization to develop. He could not help but recall the time when Su Yu personally came to ask for help. Why was he so muddle-headed back then? How could he have rejected the sect master's request for help? If he had tried his best to help, the reward he would receive now would be much more than the two of them in front of him. Unfortunately, time could not be turned back. The opportunity had been lost, and it would never come again. He bid farewell to the two of them gloomily and returned to the Zhen Chui store. Suddenly, a mysterious man wearing a bamboo hat stopped him and said, "Boss Peng, you look troubled. Do you want to find a place to have a drink or two?" Li Weitong? Boss Peng immediately recognized that the man was Yao Beiling's assistant. He could not help but feel resentful. It was this person who had caused his mind to waver and caused him to lose a great opportunity. Haha, sure. Boss Peng was furious. He did not dare to cause trouble for Yao Beiling, but he did not dare to teach a lackey a lesson. "Boss Peng, please." The place that Li Weitong brought him to was indeed a restaurant, but he was not qualified to drink wine yet. This was because the restaurant was filled with the top businessmen of the Tai Chi civilization. There were the three giants of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, and there were also businessmen who were not from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Boss Peng could only be considered above average among them. With a glance, Boss Peng knew who they were. Without exception, they were all businessmen who had been chased away by the 10,000 times rent. They had gathered together, but he did not know what they were going to do. Boss Peng, have you met the sect master? Yao Beiling asked with a gloomy expression. How much did he reward you? Boss Peng could hear the probing in her words. He rolled his eyes and smiled bitterly. He only allowed me to continue operating for 100 years. After 100 years, the 10,000 times rent is waiting for me. Is this considered a reward? Hearing this, Yao Beiling, Xiao Qian, Bao Qianjin, and the others exchanged glances and nodded slightly. Boss Peng was not lying, just like the information from his spies. Then, Boss Peng, are you willing to wait for death and be chased out of the Tai Chi civilization after 100 years? Boss Peng was perceptive. He knew that this gathering was probably not a good thing. It was most likely that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce and the businessmen who had been chased away were unwilling and were preparing to create a conspiracy. With a thought, Boss Peng said resolutely, I have been rooted in the Tai Chi civilization for many years. I am naturally unwilling to give up just like this. Please save me, Boss Yao. Yao Beiling smiled leisurely. The heavens only save those who save themselves. I have a mission. If you can complete it, you will receive 100 times or even 1,000 times more benefits than what you have now. Boss Peng was tempted. His mouth was dry as he said, Boss Yao, please show me the way. It is very simple. Donate money and invite the assassins of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce to come and get rid of the Tai Chi faction master. Hearing this, Boss Peng gasped. Get rid of him? This. Other than that, there is no other way. Yao Beiling shook her head coldly. Only by getting rid of him can we mobilize our power and change the minds of the Tai Chi faction. Boss Peng's eyes turned secretly. He asked cautiously, what are the chances of killing him? 100%. We are prepared to invite a mid-stage 5-crown divine warrior assassin. Even with Mo Xiaochai's protection, Su Yu will not be able to escape death. Boss Peng was shocked once again. A mid-stage 5-crown divine warrior. Ordinary people like them could not even contact such a level of assassin. Only people like Yao Beiling, who were insiders of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, could contact the assassins of the Chamber of Commerce. How is it? Yao Beiling stared into his eyes, slightly impatient. In her eyes, Boss Peng was only a medium-sized businessman. She did not have much time to wait for his reply. Chapter 2004. Then, how much should I donate? Boss Peng asked cautiously. Yao Beiling calmly said, the lowest price to hire a mid-stage 5-crown emperor is 100 trillion divine stones. Everyone here, the lowest donation is 1 trillion. 1 trillion was even more generous than Su Yu. Su Yu's rent was only 100 billion, but Yao Beiling wanted 10 times that. Do you think I'm a piece of meat on the chopping board that you can cut at will? Peng Yuanxin was filled with hatred. They were both merchants, but they were all foxes from the same mountain. Why talk nonsense with him? Peng Yuanxin knew Yao Beiling's plan and intentions. Hiring a 5-crown emperor assassin of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce did not even require 1 trillion divine stones. He had asked for 100 trillion divine stones. Obviously, he had two plans. Firstly, he could use the merchants to hire an assassin to kill Su Yu. Secondly, he could make a fortune to make up for his recent losses. Why? Are you unwilling? Yao Beiling's eyes gradually turned cold. What could Peng Yuanxin do? If he did not pay up today, he would die. If I can assassinate Su Yu and change the Tai Chi faction's decision, I will support it. But it is too much money. I have less than 800 billion divine stones. I have accumulated this money over the years. I hope you will be kind enough to let me donate 700 billion divine stones and use the remaining 100 billion for myself. How about that? He had been in business for many years and had 1 trillion divine stones. He naturally wanted to bargain. Since everyone has 1 trillion, how can I make an exception for you? Don't think I don't know your background. Just last year, you made no less than 30 billion. After so many years, how could you not have a trillion? Either you don't pay up, or you pay up a trillion, Yao Beiling said unceremoniously. It was obvious that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had spies in the Zhenchui store. They could even investigate his income. At that moment, Peng Yuanxin was filled with regret. Associating with this kind of person would only result in being eaten alive sooner or later. A trillion divine stones was the result of hundreds of years of hard work. But he had no other choice. I'll pay. I only ask that you kill Su Yu, Peng Yuanxin said through gritted teeth. He took out several space storage devices and handed them over. Only then did Yao Beiling's expression soften. She took out a contract. It was a contract to assassinate Su Yu. Inject a strand of your soul imprint into it, and we'll be friends, Yao Beiling said. This contract was meant to restrict Peng Yuanxin. If he dared to leak the secret, as long as Yao Beiling destroyed the contract, his soul would instantly shatter. Feeling helpless, Peng Yuanxin left a strand of his soul in it. Now, Boss Peng, go back and wait for the good news. I believe there will be good news soon. Peng Yuanxin left the restaurant. The more he thought about it, the more unwilling he became. Why did he have to let his years of savings be taken away? When he returned to the True Jade Hall, he looked up at the maidservant at the reception desk and felt even angrier. The person he had cultivated for many years had actually become a spy for the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Filled with grievances, he entered the secret chamber and pondered for a long time. I can't just sit here and wait for death, Peng Yuanxin muttered to himself. With a thought, he disguised himself again and left silently with the help of some teleportation talismans. When he reappeared, he was in front of the Taiji sect. Rather than trust you, I might as well trust Su Yu, Peng Yuanxin thought. At the very least, Su Yu could repay those who had helped him 100-fold. As for Yao Beiling, it was highly likely that he would take another bite out of him in the future. After patiently waiting in line for a long time, he finally saw Su Yu again. Su Yu was slightly puzzled. Boss Peng, do you have any other questions? Peng Yuanxin hesitated for a while, then said, I have something to tell you, Master. It concerns your personal safety. Speak, Su Yu said as he stopped writing. Before I speak, I hope Master can promise me that you will take back my soul contract, Peng Yuanxin said. No problem. Peng Yuanxin then told Su Yu what had happened after he left the Taiji sect. She had assumed that Su Yu would be flustered, or at the very least, nervous. Unexpectedly, Su Yu's eyes were calm. He nodded his head slightly and said, as expected. He had ruined the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's great plan and caused many industry bosses to go bankrupt. Their deliberate revenge was not unexpected. However, Su Yu now had the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole, which were fused with the bones of the Path Master. His teleportation speed was comparable to the peak of the 5 Crown Divine Warriors. The middle stage assassins they had hired probably could not even touch the corner of Su Yu's clothes. I have received the message. Thank you, Boss Peng, Su Yu said calmly. He paused for a moment, then crossed out Peng Yuanxin's name on the booklet. He said, I have changed my previous decision. Your rent will be as usual. As long as you do not violate the rules of the Taiji civilization, you can do business in the Taiji civilization forever. By the way, I will help you remove your soul contract now. Su Yu held a life cutter in his palm. As the knife fell, Peng Yuanxin felt a sharp pain in his soul, as if a part of it had been cut off. Before Peng Yuanxin could be angry, he was shocked to find that the part of his soul that had fallen into the contract had been disconnected from him. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master. Peng Yuanxin was overjoyed. Losing 1 trillion divine stones was distressing, but he was most unwilling to let his soul be held by others. Originally, he had imagined all kinds of situations where he could not get back the contract. If necessary, he would do it himself. Now that he had lost a trace of his soul, the contract was directly removed. He looked at Su Yu deeply, a trace of respect in his heart. To be able to break the soul contract without being noticed, such a feat did not seem like something a divine warrior would do. In the past, he had underestimated this person's true abilities. I will take my leave. Peng Yuanxin walked out of the Tai Chi faction's great hall, his mind suddenly open. He had erased the ban that had been in place for 100 years, and he had also successfully removed the contract. The rewards of this trip were far beyond his imagination. Although I made the wrong choice once, I hope I won't make the same choice again, Peng Yuanxin thought. Next, he could only pray that Su Yu could successfully escape from the 5-crown divine warrior's middle-stage killer. Just as he was thinking about this, an 8-zhang tall, muscular, and emitting an oppressive aura suddenly appeared in front of Peng Yuanxin. A huge projection enveloped Peng Yuanxin. Friend, may I ask how to get to the Tai Chi faction? The other party asked calmly and forcefully. Peng Yuanxin's heart skipped a beat. Facing this person, he felt an unusual sense of oppression. He hurriedly pointed the way. 300 miles east, it is in the center of the city. Thank you. The other party nodded and stepped into the air. He stepped aside, and Peng Yuanxin was shocked to find out that this person was followed by a large group of people. He could not see through half of the people's cultivation bases. The rest that he could see through were at least 4-crown divine warriors, early stage or middle stage. My goodness, where did so many powerful 4-crown divine warriors peak come from? Peng Yuanxin secretly clicked his tongue. With the state of the Tai Chi civilization, normally, no 5-crown divine warrior would come to visit, and it was even less likely for 5-crown divine warriors to come in groups. Peng Yuanxin naturally did not dare to associate them with 5-crown divine warriors. Unfortunately, reality exceeded Peng Yuanxin's expectations. Su Yu had just sent off a merchant when he sensed something. He instantly disappeared from the Tai Chi Great Hall and appeared in the sky above the Tai Chi faction. The Hunter King saw a silver-haired youth blocking his way. He cupped his fists and said, I would like to see your faction, master. Su Yu did not say a word. He took out his identity token and said, Looking for me? You are a group of 5-crown divine warriors, and you have come to visit me. Is there something you need? He was calm and composed. Not only could he see through their cultivation bases at a glance, but he was also fearless. If it were an ordinary master of a 5-star civilization, he would have lost his composure by now. As expected of the old senior's disciple, even in the presence of 5-crown divine warriors, he still had such a bearing. We are the Hunter Alliance. A few days ago, we received a great favor from your master. We have no way to repay him, so we have come to help you on his orders, the Hunter King said. Su Yu looked surprised. I see. That old fellow has always been a busybody. The Hunter King and the others looked embarrassed. They did not dare to say a word. I don't need your help with anything. However, if you have nothing to do, you can rest in the Tai Chi civilization for a while and see if there is anything you can help with. The Hunter King nodded. That's exactly what I intend to do. Before he came to the Tai Chi faction, he had naturally inquired about the current situation of the Tai Chi faction. He was somewhat dismayed to find out that not long before they came, there had been a relatively serious economic turmoil in the Tai Chi faction. Unfortunately, the current faction master was wise and mighty, and he had resolved the turmoil. They had no place to use their skills now. You have too many 5-crown divine warriors. If the news gets out, I'm afraid it will cause the Tai Chi creatures to feel uneasy. So, why don't you rest in my faction's main peak for the time being? Su Yu did not want to expose them prematurely. The Hunter King said, We will follow the faction master's arrangements. Just like that, Su Yu openly arranged for them to stay at the faction's main peak. There were a total of 400 of them. Among them, there were more than 35 crown divine warriors, and more than 300 4-crown divine warriors. Such a majestic group of people naturally could not be hidden from the eyes and ears of those with ulterior motives in the faction. For example, Mo Xiaochai. Hey! Where did you find so many experts? There are also 30 people whose cultivations I can't see through at all. Don't tell me they are all 5-crown divine warriors? Mo Xiaochai said half jokingly, half seriously. Su Yu shrugged. Do you believe me? Nonsense, of course I don't believe you. If you could really contact so many 5-crown divine warriors, you could hold a small ecliptic palace assembly. Mo Xiaochai said calmly. She could only think that the 30 people whose cultivations she could not see through were due to their constitutions. She could not be blamed for thinking that way. She knew Su Yu's background better than anyone else. She and her husband, Huangfu Liang, were born in the poor sea of constellations. They had no background to speak of. Apart from the great ultimate faction master, he had never seen a 5-crown divine warrior in his life, let alone invited so many 5-crown divine warriors to the great ultimate civilization as guests. She had never thought of such a thing. Isn't that it? Su Yu smiled indifferently. Arrange for my cauldron to accept the assets of those merchants who are preparing to leave the great ultimate civilization as soon as possible. Humph! You are abusing your position for personal gain. Write a recommendation letter to the cauldron immediately and let me join the cauldron. Also, give me a good position. Otherwise, I will tell on you. Mo Xiaochai did not get up early without benefit. She could see that the cauldron's future development was limitless. With Su Yu's unstinting support, it was likely that in the next 10 years, not only the great ultimate civilization, but all the civilizations within the jurisdiction of the great ultimate civilization would have their markets controlled by the cauldron. Its potential was immeasurable. Chapter 2005. Since he had established the cauldron, there was no possibility of Su Yu giving up halfway. What is the ecliptic palace assembly you mentioned just now? Su Yu asked. Mo Xiaochai's expression was unnatural as she said, It's nothing. It's just a gathering of civilizations. Only the 5-star civilizations under the jurisdiction of the ecliptic palace are qualified to receive an invitation to participate in the ecliptic palace. Our great ultimate civilization is a civilization that pays particular attention to manners and elegance. We have never bothered to participate. Bothered to participate? He did not believe a single word that came out of Mo Xiaochai's mouth. Perhaps the great ultimate civilization was not qualified to receive an invitation from the ecliptic palace? What is the ecliptic palace? Su Yu had heard the name of the ecliptic palace countless times, but he did not have a deep understanding of what it was. Mo Xiaochai rolled her eyes at Su Yu, then suddenly said, It's normal that you do not know. The ecliptic palace has always been mysterious. Not many people know about it. The so-called ecliptic palace is an organization established by the Taoist masters. Its purpose is to maintain the order of the civilizations below the 6-star level. Otherwise, think about it. Why is it that the civilizations are so vast, yet there are no bandits who commit crimes and plunder everywhere? It is because of the deterrence of the ecliptic palace. Once an organization that destroys order appears, it will be ruthlessly wiped out by the path masters of the ecliptic palace. Su Yu's heart trembled slightly. He knew that the ecliptic palace was formed by the path masters. However, he did not expect it to have such a function. This was different from what he had imagined. Then what is the significance of the ecliptic palace assembly? Su Yu asked. Mo Xiaochai tried to hide her jealous and envious expression. It's nothing much. The master of civilization who performs well is qualified to pick a Bodhi fruit from the ecliptic palace. Su Yu's heart moved. What is the use of the Bodhi fruit? It's useless. It can only help you break through to the next level, Mo Xiaochai said casually, but the desire in her eyes could not be concealed. Break through to the next level? Su Yu's eyes brightened slightly. If he persisted in taking the 9-yin elixir, he would break through to the next level sooner or later. This Bodhi fruit reward was indeed not worthy of the great reputation of the ecliptic palace. You may have misunderstood me. The level I am talking about is not the improvement within the realm, but the crossing of the entire great realm. For example, if you reach the late stage of a 4-crown emperor after taking one, you could directly become a 5-crown emperor. If a peak 5-crown emperor consumes one, there's a chance of immediately becoming a downlord. Hearing this, Su Yu's pupils shrank fiercely. It was easy to increase one's cultivation level, but it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to cross a great realm. Su Yu had managed to obtain the mysterious spiritual medicine that the corpse emperor did not manage to take away in time. Only then did he manage to break through to the middle stage of the 3-crown martial emperor. If he could obtain the Bodhi fruit, wouldn't he immediately become a 4-crown emperor? Going back and forth would save at least 100 years of cultivation time. How can I get an invitation? Su Yu was completely tempted. Stop daydreaming. There are only 2 ways to obtain an invitation. One is to be ranked in the top 1,000 of all the 5-star civilizations under the jurisdiction of the Zodiac Temple. Su Yu heaved a sigh of relief. There were still many places available. So, what's the ranking of our Taiji faction? Emo Xiaochai tilted her head and thought for a moment, probably around 80,000. Hearing that, Su Yu gasped. Your Highness Huang Dao, are there so many 5-star civilizations? Are you sure? TSK. What a fuss. What's a mere zodiac temple in the boundless Taichu? It's just a speck of dust in the nothingness. Emo Xiaochai was unconcerned. At this moment, Su Yu deeply felt the vastness of Taichu. 85-star civilizations. A 5-star civilization ruled the boundless nothingness. One could imagine how vast the area of influence of an 85-star civilization was. With the Taiji factions ranking so far behind, it seemed like it wouldn't be easy to enter the Zodiac Temple Great Meet. What's the other way you mentioned? Su Yu suddenly asked. Emo Xiaochai thought for a moment, then said, It's very simple. A 5-star civilization in the top 100 is willing to recommend us. Su Yu couldn't help but laugh bitterly in his heart. He didn't even know a single master of civilization, let alone one that was so highly ranked. You should also give up on this path. The 5-star civilizations in the top 100 can all be called half-path civilizations. Those civilizations have at least one half-step path master in charge. That's how they can intimidate the other heroes and rank in the top 100. Half-step path master? Su Yu's heart stirred once again. Just like half-step emperors, there was a transitional stage between emperors and pathmasters. They were people who were about to become pathmasters but were still lacking in maturity. Their strength surpassed the 5-crown emperors, but it was far below the level of pathmasters. It was even more impossible for Su Yu to get acquainted with such a civilization. Both paths were hopeless. Moreover, even if he participated in the meeting, not everyone would have the opportunity to pluck the Bodhi fruit, right? Thinking of this, Su Yu, who had always believed himself to have some perseverance, couldn't help but shake his head, expressing his helplessness. All right, I'll write you a letter of recommendation to ensure that you can enter the top management of the Cauldron organization, Su Yu said generously. To be able to rope in an existence comparable to a 5-crown emperor into the Cauldron organization as a fighter, how could he not take this deal? Emo Xiaochai happily took the letter and ran to find the King of Darkness, strongly requesting to join. Of course, she strongly requested a bonus. With Su Yu's handwritten letter, she smoothly joined the Cauldron organization. However, she would only be a Cauldron king. Emo Xiaochai didn't really care. What she cared about was whether she could get a bonus. Time flowed like water, and a whole month passed in the blink of an eye. The shops of the Tai Chi civilization underwent a major overhaul. More than half of the merchants were having a clearance sale, preparing to leave as soon as possible. The Cauldron actively joined in the takeover, buying their goods and shops together, and continued to operate under a different name. In less than half a year, it could take over more than 80% of the shop. On this day, Suyu suddenly felt a strong fluctuation in the thread of fate. He knew it was the mid-stage 5-crown Emperor killer that Ping Yuanxin had warned him about. He left the Tai Chi Great Hall as if nothing had happened and returned to the faction master peak. Coincidentally, the Hunter King was training at the peak. Faction Master Su, I'm really sorry. I've been here for more than a month, but I haven't been of any use, the Hunter King said apologetically. Suyu paused for a moment, then said, It's all right. It's enough for you to show your sincerity. Is the one who broke into the Tai Chi faction your friend? The Hunter King immediately sensed a hidden aura of a 5-crown emperor. Suyu said in surprise, My friends are all out of town. They won't be back for a while. Then who is this? The Hunter King's eyes suddenly sharpened. I'll invite him over and question him face to face. Thank you. With a swoosh, the Hunter King disappeared. In just 3 breaths, without even the sound of a fight, a short, skinny man with fierce eyes was brought back by the Hunter King. His head was crooked to one side, and he was unconscious. I'm sorry, he wanted to resist, so I was a bit heavy-handed. Just what I wanted. Suyu immediately checked his body, and found that there were several treasures and talismans on his body that could kill himself at any time. He did not remove them. Instead, he opened his soul eye between his brows and forcibly dragged his soul out of his body. He had to thank the Hunter King for knocking him out, so his soul was in a state of unconsciousness. Otherwise, trying to drag out the soul of a mid-stage 5-crown emperor was no different from a fantasy. Little did he know, the Hunter King saw this and felt his heart skip a beat. Forcefully restraining the soul of a 5-crown emperor. Such a divine technique. Only the upper third-rate soul race could do it, right? Could this person be a member of the soul race? Thinking of his identity as a disciple of the Pathmaster, he was even more certain of his guess. After swallowing the soul, Suyu silently digested it for a while and obtained many useful memories. When he opened his eyes again, they were filled with a cold light. Ha! It would be impolite not to reciprocate. Soul light clone, Suyu said softly. His soul was divided into 9, and one of the 9 souls turned into an independent soul and entered the body of the killer. Seeing this, the Hunter King's eyes were filled with shock. You are a member of the soul race? The Hunter King's heart trembled. To be able to divide one's soul and give it an independent personality was a unique talent of the soul race. The faction master Su before him was definitely a member of the soul race. That was the upper third-rate race of the legends. To hunters like them, it was an unattainable existence. His heart was in turmoil. He had helped Suyu before to curry favor with the Pathmaster. But now, he could not help but have a new thought. If he could have a strong backer, why would he work so hard to be a hunter? However, he still needed to observe for a while to determine whether Suyu's identity was real. If he was really a soul, his connections should be very strong. Suyu looked at him, neither denying nor admitting it. I hope you can keep this a secret for the time being. Definitely. In the depths of a secret underground room, thousands of businessmen gathered together with their most trusted bodyguards. They gathered together anxiously, making the gloomy underground room seem unusually depressing. The fateful moment had arrived. A few hours ago, the killer from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had finally arrived from the 6-star civilization and taken over the mission from them. Now, he should be lurking in the Tai Chi faction, preparing to assassinate Suyu. Ping Yuanxin was also among them, feeling extremely nervous. Suyu was so confident that he could escape the killer's pursuit, right? If Suyu met with misfortune, Ping Yuanxin would not suffer any loss. However, under the rule of people like Yao Beiling, he could foresee the end of the Zhen Chui store. In less than 100 years, it would be swallowed up by them unscrupulously. Yao Beiling and the others were equally nervous. They were 100% sure that the killer they had hired could kill Suyu. But what if there was a mishap? Now that they had used the killer, they had shed all pretenses of cordiality. If they failed, what awaited them would be Suyu's merciless counterattack. Therefore, the businessmen who were involved in this matter gathered together and built a temporary intercivilization transportation portal. Once an unavoidable accident occurred, they would all flee. Xiao Qian could not bear the pressure and muttered softly, "It's been so long and there's still no movement?" Yao Bailing said calmly, "The killer must be waiting for a more suitable time to strike." "Don't worry." All of a sudden, the door of the secret room was forcefully pushed open by an external force. The businessmen were so frightened that their hearts constricted. However, when they saw who it was, they all heaved a sigh of relief. The mission is completed? Yao Bailing's heart was completely at ease. The fact that it was not a member of the Tai Chi faction who had come indicated the outcome. The killer nodded. Xiao Qian asked doubtfully, "Why is there no movement?" The killer said indifferently, "Do we need movement to kill a 3-crown emperor?" Chapter 2006. Xiao Qian nodded. "Not bad." Before he finished speaking, the assassin said, "However, I did not kill him." Before they could rejoice, everyone was stunned. Yao Bailing's brows sank. "Were we discovered?" The assassin slowly walked down and shook his head. "Then why did you give up halfway?" Yao Bailing asked in surprise. Suddenly, the cold-looking assassin grinned. "Of course, I came back to send you on your way." As soon as he finished speaking, the assassin turned into a blur and instantly occupied the temporary intercivilization transportation formation. Yao Bailing's expression changed drastically. "Not good. Quickly scatter and escape." However, several 5-crown emperors walked down from the entrance, blocking the exit so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Many merchants broke out in cold sweat. They realized that the space around them had been sealed, and their teleportation talismans could not be used. "Who are you?" "We are from the Star Alliance Commerce. Do you understand the consequences of killing us?" Yao Bailing glared at the 5-crown emperors that were walking over, his heart beating fast. The newcomers were naturally the hunters that had been temporarily dispatched. Their gazes were indifferent as they said softly, "There is no Star Alliance commerce here, only the Taiji sect master." Before they understood what the Taiji sect master meant, they charged into their midst like tigers in a flock of sheep and shouted, "Those who surrender will not be killed." Yao Bailing gritted his teeth, and took out an offensive talisman from a 5-crown emperor and was about to throw it out. However, he and the leaders of the Star Alliance commerce were important target. How could he give them a chance to attack? "Kill all those who resist." The 5-crown emperor roared through the air. A sound wave swept over and shattered Yao Bailing. His body and soul were both destroyed, and he could not be more dead. Xiao Qian and Miss Bao were also killed instantly. The rain of blood caused the merchants' hearts to tremble, and they immediately surrendered. In front of the 5-crown emperors, they could not resist at all. Not long after, thousands of merchants were disarmed and surrendered. Their cultivation was sealed, and their storage devices were all taken away, turning them into ordinary people. Peng Yuanxin was the only one who was safe and standing among the crowd. His face was filled with shock and disbelief. Where did the Taiji sect master find these 5-crown emperors? The outside world actually knew nothing about it? However, what followed was a huge shock. Peng Yuanxin knew that he had gambled correctly this time. Since Suyu was so calm, he must have some powerful tricks up his sleeve. He had gambled wrongly once, and had almost lost his fortune. Fortunately, he had gambled correctly the second time. After the hunters had suppressed all the rebellious merchants, Suyu manipulated the killer's body and reactivated the temporary transportation portal. With a muffled rumble, his figure disappeared. In the vast nothingness that was an unknown distance away, a battleship that was comparable to a 5-star civilization traversed the boundless nothingness. It ignored the terror of the nothingness and moved about freely. In a certain intercivilization teleportation formation in the giant ship, the assassin's figure flashed out. An old man with an indifferent expression waited in front of the transportation formation. He said unhappily, "You are 1 hour later than expected." "This subordinate is incompetent," the assassin said. The old man was one of the people in charge of the 6-star civilization's Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce branch. He was in charge of assassination activities. Their main goal was to get rid of the obstacles that prevented the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce from expanding their business, such as some masters of civilization who were ignorant of the times. Of course, these civilizations had to be very important and profitable. For low-level civilizations that were below 5-star civilizations, it was not worth it to send 5-crown imperial assassins. It took you half a day to assassinate a master of a 5-star civilization who was ranked 80,000. Do you know that 3 assassination missions were delayed during this time? The old man reprimanded. "Elderly, please punish me." The old man said, "There will be no punishment, but this will not happen again. Now go to the mission hall and quickly deal with the 3 delayed assassination missions." Yes. The assassin left and came to the mission hall. In this battleship, more than 80% of the people were professional assassins trained by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. They were always on standby in the mission hall to carry out assassination missions from various Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce branches. The assassin stood at the door of the hall and looked inside. He saw hundreds of 5-crown imperial assassins waiting silently, closely watching the changes of the missions on the crystal screen. Once a mission corresponding to their name appeared, they would immediately go to the front desk to take the mission and leave quickly. It was not without reason that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce could dominate the nothingness. With such an invincible assassination team, how many of the 5-star civilizations did not obey? The masters of civilization that did not obey were probably already dead. The assassin's lips curled into a faint cold smile. Standing in the middle of the hall, he suddenly took a deep breath, and the great desolation power in his body started to spin crazily without warning. His entire body was like an inflated balloon that was about to explode. He's being controlled by someone and is about to self-destruct. Quickly retreat. The strange movement caused the assassins to be on guard. They quickly reacted and teleported out of the mission hall. However, this assassin's self-destruction was too sudden, and they were not prepared. Boom! The power of a mid-stage 5-crown emperor's self-destruction could be imagined. The entire mission hall was within its range. Only a few assassins managed to escape. The rest were affected. The entire mission hall was blown up beyond recognition. The ground was littered with assassins wailing in pain. Many had even been killed on the spot. The entire mission hall shook violently because of the violent explosion. An incomparably large hole had been blasted open. A large amount of power of nothingness flowed into the battleship and swallowed everything that could be swallowed along the way. Elderly, who was sitting cross-legged and guarding the teleportation formation, suddenly had a change of expression. He sped toward the mission hall. What he saw was a scene that made him tremble with anger. The mission hall no longer existed. All that was left was a giant hole. The hole was filled with corpses and countless injured people. Of the several hundred 5-crown emperor-level assassins, less than 200 were still alive. More than half had been killed. Those that survived were all seriously injured. Only less than 10 people had successfully escaped from the mission hall. Who can tell me what happened? Elder Li's eyes were about to pop out as he roared. An assassin that had luckily escaped said, "It's Kongxing. He was controlled by someone and suddenly self-destructed in the mission hall." Him? Elder Li's heart shook. Kongxing's mission had taken far longer than expected. So he had been controlled by someone. Retrieve the details of his mission. Elder Li shouted. He remembered that it was a very simple mission. A member of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce from a lagging 5-star civilization had requested to send assassins to assassinate a disobedient master of civilization. This mission should have been relatively simple. Why had he been captured? In the end, after looking through the information, there was indeed something wrong with this master. Strange, a 3-crown emperor could actually become the master of a 5-star civilization. Elder Li was suspicious. After a moment of silence, he said, "Retrieve the information of everyone named Su Yu." Someone beside him immediately took out a scroll. The scroll was densely packed with Su Yu's name. Anyone who was slightly famous in the Great Beginning Realm with the name Su Yu would appear on the scroll. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's information was so complete that it was shocking. Soon, a piece of information about Su Yu that matched the description of the Tai Chi master stopped. The first time he appeared was in the Sea of Constellations. His exact origins are unknown. The second time he appeared was in the Diu Empire. He assassinated the person in charge of the Diu Empire's Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. The third time he appeared was in the Dark Star Civilization. He killed the person in charge of the local Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, Alliance Master Jian. The fourth time he appeared was in the Tai Chi Civilization. He suppressed the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's Price Alliance. Currently, the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce has confirmed that he is a D-grade threat. He is a target that must be killed. Looking at the information behind the name, Elder Li's face was cold. You are always going against the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, and we still can't find out who you are. Are you from the Nirvana Organization? Only the Nirvana Organization could provide Su Yu with strong protection and successfully subdue Kongxing. In the Great Beginning Realm, the Nirvana Organization was one of the few large organizations that could compete with the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Both parties fought in many fields. Now, Su Yu was going against the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce everywhere he went. If he wasn't from the Nirvana Organization, it wouldn't make sense. Repair the giant ship immediately. Elder Li closed the scroll and said coldly, "How should we deal with this D-grade threat?" The assistant beside him asked. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce usually divided people who could pose a threat into 4 levels: A, B, C, and D. As threats, they were targets that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had to eliminate. The D-grade threat was the lowest. It could be eliminated or temporarily observed. Now that the 100th stronghold of the assassins has been severely damaged, it is not advisable to make a big move. Moreover, the person who subdued Kongxing must be a peak 5-crown martial emperor. There might be a half-step Taoist master. Unless we use the gold medal assassins, it will be difficult to succeed. The assistant understood what the elder meant. It was not worthwhile to carry out an assassination now. The Nirvana Organization and the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had too many similar conflicts. They were already used to each other, and were not in a hurry to seek revenge. However, we must keep an eye on this person. Any movement must be updated in time. Yes. In the Tai Chi Civilization. Su Yu opened his eyes slowly. There was a hint of exhaustion in his eyes. The self-explosion had sacrificed 1/9 of his soul. Naturally, his original body was affected. However, the information obtained from the destroyed souls made it worth it to lose some souls. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce has a feud with the Nirvana Organization? That is unexpected. Su Yu touched his chin as if he had found something very interesting. His eyes shone with a subtle light. However, the power of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce is unimaginably strong. The battleship with hundreds of 5-crown martial emperor assassins is only the 100th stronghold of the assassins. In other words, there are at least 99 other strongholds. The assassins in those strongholds are definitely no less than this battleship. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce in the 6-star civilization. If this was the case for a 6-star civilization, how terrifying would the 7-star, 8-star or even 9-star divisions be? The more Su-yu thought about it, the more he realized the terrifying power of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. The true power of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was gradually revealed in 6-star civilizations and above. Chapter 2007. In the end, the Taiji sect is still too small. Su-yu took a deep breath and regulated his breathing for a moment. He then looked at the two beauties in front of him. Then, let us continue our previous conversation. Do you wish for me to convince the hunter to send you back? Yun Qianchuang crossed her arms before her chest and said awkwardly, "If it wasn't necessary, I wouldn't ask you for help." The young girl stared at Su-yu with infatuation, saliva dripping from the corners of her mouth. "Brother Xiao Sa, you sent me home. I'm so happy." "Hey, you damned girl, don't forget who you're talking to. This guy won't do anything unless he benefits us. How could he possibly send us home for free?" Yun Qianchuang poked the young girl's forehead. Su-yu chuckled. "The one who knows me best is Mountain Master Yun. Cut it out. What do you want?" Yun Qianchuang looked at Su-yu as if she had seen through him. Su-yu didn't try to hide it. "I saved you from the Corpse Clan, which is a life-saving grace. Now I've sent people to escort you back, which is another grace. Isn't it reasonable for you to compensate me a little?" Yun Qianchuang was furious. If Su-yu had not snatched the Path Master's bone, she would have returned home by now. She would not have been chased by that purple-haired Su-yu. After that, he was even more unlucky and fell into such dire straits. He actually had the nerve to talk about gratitude. However, since it had already come to this, Yun Qianchuang could only ask Su-yu for help. The journey to her hometown was long, and the two of them had used up all their magic treasures. Without anyone to protect them, it would be very difficult for them to return to their hometown safely. "State your conditions first," Yun Qianchuang said. Su-yu smiled. "Then I'd like to ask, which civilization are you from?" Yun Qianchuang hesitated for a moment, but the young girl replied without hesitation, "We're from the Four Symbol Civilization, one of the top 100 5-star civilizations. My grandfather is the Master of Civilization." When Yun Qianchuang tried to stop him, it was already too late. Su-yu's eyes lit up when he heard this. Top 100 civilizations? Half-path civilization? The aunt and niece duo actually came from such a high-level 5-star civilization. How unexpected! In that case, can you recommend my Tai Chi civilization to participate in the ecliptic meet? Su-yu revealed a cunning look. Yun Qianchuang immediately felt a headache coming on. She knew that something was wrong the moment her niece mentioned it. Sure enough, Su-yu, the scheming vixen, would never let him off. Sure, the girl quickly said. Yun Qianchuang glared fiercely at her and said, "Don't speak again." She stared at Su-yu and said, "It's impossible to invite the Tai Chi civilization." "Why?" Su-yu asked. "That's because our four-symbol civilization won't even participate, so we naturally have no right to invite others to participate." Su-yu had never thought of such a reason. He said, "Has the ecliptic meet lost its appeal to the half-path civilizations?" "Of course not. The civilizations that participate in the ecliptic ceremony will obtain unimaginable benefit. However, the master of civilization of our four-symbol civilization, who is also my father, is currently refining a 9-bone heart saving pill to extend Patriarch's life. The Patriarch was most likely a half-step downlord of the four-symbol civilization. The reason the four-symbol civilization was able to remain in the top 100 was most likely because of this half-step downlord. If he died, the status of the four-symbol civilization would probably plummet. At the very least, the four-symbol civilization would not be able to protect the top 100 half-path civilizations. Thus, compared to the ecliptic meeting, the life of the ancestor was naturally more important. 9-bone heart saving pill. Su-yu's eyes shone suddenly. "You're looking for the Path Master's bone for this pill?" Yun Qianshuang's beautiful eyes were filled with resentment as she said, "Path masters are rare existences. The bones of ordinary path masters are retrieved by the ecliptic palace after they die. Very few of them end up in the outside world. I've searched through many ancient books and found traces of the faceless Buddha and the common people's path master perishing outside. That's why I went to the Sea of Constellations and the Dark Star civilization. So that was why. No wonder they would appear in such a remote civilization." Suyu pondered for a moment before saying, "You want to use the invitation to the ecliptic meeting to exchange for the Path Master's bone?" "Can't I?" Yun Qianshuang asked. Suyu shook his head lightly. "I can't give you everything. I can only give you a thumb-sized portion." How rare was the Path Master's bone? If the other party casually exchanged all of it for an invitation, the deal would be a failure. Yun Qianshuang's beautiful brows sank slightly. A thumb-sized portion was barely enough, but what if the refinement failed and she needed to refine it a second time? "If you're not willing, then forget it." The Path Master's bone was also very important to Suyu. "All right, I'll give you my father's promise first," Yun Qianshuang said decisively. "However, you might need to make a trip there personally. It will take at least 5 years to get to the Four-Symbol Civilization, and there are only 10 years left before the ecliptic meeting. If you wait here for news, I'm afraid I won't even have the time to come back and deliver the invitation to you. Moreover, it will also take a long time to get to the ecliptic palace." Suyu pondered for a moment before nodding slightly. "All right. We'll leave in a year," Suyu said in a low voice. There was still one thing he had yet to do. The human demon. 3 years had passed since the human demon had appeared, but in these 3 years, there had been no movement from the human demon, as if he had never appeared. It's time to get rid of the human demon. Suyu left the small courtyard and arrived at the training grounds of the Hunter King. He sensed Suyu's aura and immediately stood up. "Does Master Su have any instructions?" Suyu looked troubled. "To be honest, I've recently received information that a very dangerous existence has appeared in our civilization." "How dangerous?" The Hunter King's eyes shone brightly. He wasn't afraid of danger, but he was afraid that Suyu wouldn't have any danger for him to deal with. Now, there was finally a place for him to use his skills. Suyu told him about the human demon. When he found out that the human demon had killed the previous faction master with just a talisman, his face turned grave. "This human demon's abilities should be on par with mine," Suyu then said. "However, apart from me we have so many brothers. Victory will not be a problem." Hearing that, Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. "Are you waiting for him to come knocking on our door?" the Hunter King asked. Suyu said calmly, "No. I prefer to take the initiative." At the same time, in the underground world, in the tribe of the ancient people, the human demon was chewing on a roasted bat as he looked at the ancient people standing in front of him with boredom. Compared to the ancient people he had seen 3 years ago, the eyes of the ancient people now shone brightly, showing their high intelligence. Even more exaggerated was the fact that they were sitting cross-legged and swallowing the black fog that the human demon had casually spat out. They were obviously training. At first, the strongest among them was only a 3-crown divine warrior. But now, one of them was at the level of a 4-crown divine warrior in the middle stage. After training, the 4-crown divine warrior in the middle stage of the ancient people spoke in human language. "Ancestor, you sacrificed your primordial energy to increase the intelligence and cultivation of our unworthy descendants. We are very ashamed." The human demon did not care and said calmly, "I naturally have my reasons for helping you. Otherwise, with your weak bloodline, do you think you are worthy of being my descendants? I would have eaten you all as food." The ancient people's hearts trembled. At first, there were 10,000 of them, but now there were less than 5,000. Where were the rest? They were all in the human demon's stomach. For the past 3 years, the human demon had eaten 5 ancient people every day. This had greatly reduced the number of ancient people. They had tried to resist this man-eating demon, but he had only released his breath, and they were powerless to resist. In the end, they had surrendered to him and listened to his orders. We are willing to listen to the orders of the ancestor. The human demon stretched lazily and said, "My order to you is to stay here obediently and don't go out at will." When he finished speaking, he stood up. "Ancestor, are you leaving?" The corner of the human demon's mouth curled up slightly. "I am going to meet that little guy, one of the 8 profound meanings and a master of the space law. Such a person must be delicious to eat." In the Tai Chi faction. In the Tai Chi Great Hall, the high-level people were gloomy. Just now, the Tai Chi faction master announced to the entire Tai Chi civilization, without warning, that from now on, they would mobilize for war and launch a life-and-death war against the human demon and the ancient people. The announcement spread to the minds of all living creatures in every corner. Everyone knew about it, and it was too late to organize it. Therefore, the elders' faces were extremely gloomy. They had finally survived the assassination of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Before they could even catch their breath, Su Yu had arbitrarily launched a war against the human demon. Wasn't this looking for trouble for themselves? Perhaps the human demon had never intended to cause trouble for them. Most importantly, although it was a mobilization for war, how could they have the absolute strength to fight against the human demon? In the entire Tai Chi civilization, the only 5-crown divine warrior was Mo Shaochai. But the Tai Chi faction master had been easily killed. Could Mo Shaochai stop him? The faction master's decision was too hasty. He simply did not care about the safety of the Tai Chi civilization. Many elders, who had just had a better impression of Su Yu, suddenly had an extremely bad impression of him. This was not the behavior of a faction master. "Everyone, do you have any objections?" Su Yu asked calmly, taking in everyone's expressions. The old woman, who had always supported Su Yu, could not help but stand up and say, "Faction master, if I may ask, why didn't you discuss such an important matter with us? At the very least, we would have been mentally prepared." Su Yu said indifferently, "If I had discussed it with you, you would have used all sorts of excuses to persuade me not to send troops, wouldn't you?" The old woman did not speak. That was indeed what she was thinking. "But, faction master, how do you think the Tai Chi faction can fight against the human demon? With just the few of us here?" the old woman asked. This question was also on everyone's mind. Su Yu's actions were unfathomable and inexplicable. "Of course, the Tai Chi faction can't do it. This has been decided in the past. We need external help," Su Yu said. Everyone was stunned. Since he understood, why did he still do it? Mo Shaochai muttered, "Faction master, you can't be pinning your hopes on the friends of the 4-crown divine warrior, right?" She had seen Su Yu arrange for a large group of 4-crown divine warriors and people with special constitutions to stay at the faction master's peak. Friends of the 4-crown divine warrior? Su Yu was surprised. Chapter 2008. Not good. Give up the chain of law. The Hunter King's face changed dramatically. But it was easy to give up the chain of law, but who would be willing to do so? If they gave up, it was equivalent to their lifetime of condensing the laws to vanish in an instant. They would never be able to possess the laws again, and their cultivation would be halted for life. While they hesitated, they were about to be swallowed up by the devouring power. Absolute time. At this moment, Su Yu suddenly said. A majestic and invisible law descended and froze the rapidly expanding devouring sphere. The devouring power lost its effect in an instant. The group of 5-crowned emperors succeeded in withdrawing their chain of law and retreated in unison. Even the Hunter King no longer had the slightest will to fight in his eyes, only endless fear. When the absolute time ended, the expanding sphere dissipated instantly. A trace of surprise flashed across the human demon's ferocious face. "The law of time? I remember that you have also cultivated the law of space, haven't you?" That's strange, the one on the Saint Mountain actually allowed people of this era to successfully comprehend the two supreme laws. However, such a person might taste better. The human demon licked his lips and became more interested in Suyu. The Hunter King held Suyu in one hand and said, "The human demon is not something we can contend with, unless the half-Dao master or the Dao master comes in person." Suyu was unmoved. He sat firmly on the throne and said calmly, "Although the world is vast, where can we escape to? Why don't we fight head-on?" He raised his hand and grabbed, and a powerful space halo shrouded their heads. His laws are changeable, but they are not invincible. Suyu watched the battle from the side and did not stay idle. His eyes shone with a profound light of wisdom. His laws can only devour tangible things, but they are ineffective against intangible things such as space, air, divine energy, and so on. He saw it very clearly just now. After the absolute time ended, the devouring sphere, which should have continued to expand, suddenly disappeared. It was not that the human demon disappeared on his own accord, but that he had lost the target of his devouring. So what? Can we turn invisible and fight him? The Hunter King asked. Suyu shook his head gently. That's not possible, but at least it can make you not afraid of the devouring power. Looking at the space halo above his companions, the Hunter King was skeptical and said, "Brothers, let's try it again." Everyone attacked at the same time without hesitation. The human demon sneered. "So what if you see through my laws? You will still die." In an instant, he glared at the person closest to him. A devouring orb immediately appeared on the hunter's body. At this moment, the space halo above his head flashed and teleported him elsewhere. The devouring power on Zhang Xian immediately vanished, because he had lost the continuous support of his magical vision. The hunter who had just passed through the gates of hell still had a lingering fear in his heart. The other hunters who saw this had a trace of joy on their faces. So this was the effect of the spatial halo. The human demon still had a cold smile on his face. This is just the beginning. With him as the center, a gigantic devouring sphere appeared and touched the nearest hunter. Just as it was about to devour him, the spatial halo above his head flashed and he disappeared. After losing the object it could devour, the devouring orb immediately disappeared. The group of hunters was overjoyed. Without any hesitation, they used their divine spells while the man's magic was gone. A cold smile still hung on the human demon's face, but he didn't say anything else. A devouring sphere surged out of his body, blocking the divine arts coming from all directions. The Hunter King's heart skipped a beat, and he gave the hunter beside him a look. A trace of fear flashed in the hunter's eyes. He gritted his teeth and pounced forward with all his might, attacking the devouring orb fearlessly. "You're asking for your own death." The human demon was indifferent. However, the hunter had barely touched the devouring orb when he was teleported away by the spatial halo above his head. The devouring orb disappeared abruptly because it had lost the object it could devour. The Hunter King thought to himself. His figure flashed, and a ferocious divine spell hit the human demon's chest. The human demon's body was just Yang Hua's body. How could it withstand the blow of the five-crowned Peak Emperor? With a bang, Yang Hua's body turned into flesh and blood. Only a stone hammer surrounded by green light was left floating in the air. A faint shadow of a ferocious soul flickered near the stone hammer. It was the soul of the human demon's original body. At this moment, the human demon no longer had a cold smile on his face. There was only endless anger. "A bunch of ants. Congratulations, you've angered me." He stared deeply at Suyu, who was sitting on the throne. In his eyes, the five-crowned emperor was just a puppet that he could crush at will. The real threat was Suyu, who controlled the supreme law. Without his superb mastery of the law of space, these people would have died long ago. Sky-splitting hammer. The shadow of the human demon clenched his fist and held the stone hammer in his palm. His aura rose crazily, surpassing the five-crowned emperor and reaching a realm that made the five-crowned emperor tremble. It was as if what stood before them was not a soul, but the vast heavenly law. In front of him, the five-crowned emperor was like an ant, unable to even muster the will to resist. The Hunter King trembled all over, his eyes full of disbelief. He said in a trembling voice, "The power of the Path Master, he is the remnant soul of the Path Master." The rest of the five-crowned emperors looked desperate. In front of the Path Master, any power was superfluous. Only Su Yu had a calm look in his eyes. He said leisurely, "You really are the remnant soul of the Path Master." When he first sensed the danger in the dark forest, he had expected this. The intense uneasiness was definitely not an ordinary existence. "Human, I've changed my mind. I'll eat your soul, but I'll gladly accept your body as the price for causing me to lose my body." The human demon wielded the might of a Tao Lord and slowly raised the stone hammer in his hand. With that, the rules in the hunters' bodies began to tremble. Even Su Yu's 6 rules showed signs of instability. This situation could only happen when facing the Path Master. The blow of the stone hammer was definitely at the level of the Path Master. Everyone present fell into deep despair in an instant. The creatures of the entire Taiji civilization could not help but feel their hearts beating wildly. Their blood flowed backward, and they felt the fear of the end of the world. With a blow from the Path Master, even the 5-star civilizations would cease to exist. It is your fortune to be born at the end of the era, but it is also your misfortune. I hope you can still make it in time to stop. All of a sudden, Su Yu shouted loudly for some reason. At this moment of crisis, what was the point of shouting such inexplicable words? At first, the human demon sneered, but then he realized something, and his face changed drastically. "Shut up, boom!" All of a sudden, a crack appeared in the sky, and a boundless giant palm suddenly slammed down with rolling heavenly power. The target was Su Yu. However, when it sensed the presence of the human demon, the palm turned and turned to crush him. The human demon roared in shock, "Human, you tricked me!" Without waiting for him to finish, the giant palm slammed down and crushed him into nothingness. Then, the giant palm dissipated and the sky closed again. The sky was blue, and the wind gently blew the clouds, as if the scene just now had never happened. The hunters were stunned on the spot, unable to understand the scene in front of them. The human demon was about to be destroyed along with them and the entire 5-star civilization. Why did Su Yu's casual shout cause a horrifying heavenly power to appear and obliterate him? Only Su Yu sat steadily on the throne, his face calm. Everything was as expected. What he shouted was not someone else's words, but the incomplete words of the remnant soul of the Path Master of the common people's path. He wanted to tell the world some secrets, but in the end, he attracted a mysterious giant palm that obliterated his remnant soul. The human demon kept saying, "This century," and "the end of the world," as if he was afraid that Su Yu did not know that he was like the Path Master of the common people's path and knew some secrets. Therefore, after thinking of ways to destroy his body and expose his remnant soul, Su Yu naturally used the words of the Path Master of the common people's path. Therefore, he easily attracted the giant palm. The giant palm sensed the ancient soul of the Path Master level like the human demon, and naturally determined that he was the one who was going to reveal the secret, so it killed him. He naturally would not tell these to the hunters, but his eyes flashed slightly. "How is the ancient tribe?" The Hunter King came back to his senses and said, "The hunters of the 4-crowned emperors have already gone, and they should be almost done with the harvest now." The ancient tribe. The ground was filled with the corpses of the ancient people, stacked together by hundreds of 4-crowned emperors and burned into ashes. "I wonder what enmity faction Master Su has with this group of ancient people. He repeatedly instructed us to kill them and destroy their corpses," a 4-crowned emperor said, puzzled. "Faction Master Su must have his reasons for making such arrangements. Check again to see if there are any fish that escaped the net, Faction Master Su said that we must not let any of them go. The group of 4-crowned emperors searched everywhere, even the dark forest was searched thoroughly. After confirming that there were no more, they left the ancient tribe. It turned out that before officially declaring war on the human demon, Su Yu had sent the hunters of the 4-crowned emperors to hide near the ancient tribe, waiting for orders. When the human demon appeared, Su Yu sent a message to them that they could move, which led to the current situation. The group of hunters left the empty ancient tribe, and also left the underground world. However, what they did not know was that a long time after they left, in the quagmire of the underground world, a growing 9-een grass suddenly moved. Immediately after, an ancient person covered in mud crawled out from it. He stared at the direction where the hunters left, and hurried back to the tribe. It turned out that he was an ancient person who was hunting outside, and coincidentally left the tribe, missing this disaster. When he returned to the tribe, looking at the ashes all over the ground, the ancient person slapped his chest with both hands and roared, "Ancestor, quickly save your descendant." However, the ancient person suddenly froze, and then his face became pained. Visible to the naked eye, the blood vessels under his skin were rolling with an eerie green light, wriggling continuously in his body, and finally converging at his chest. Bang! His chest suddenly exploded, and he died tragically on the spot. A stone hammer that was covered in dim green light rose up shakily from the shattered chest. Soon, a dim shadow of a soul appeared, looked at the ashes all over the ground, and then looked at the only corpse at his feet, and said in a low voice, "What a cunning human! He actually predicted that I could use the ancient person to be reborn?" If this ancient person had not coincidentally been hunting outside and avoided the disaster, the human demon would have been reduced to ashes. Chapter 2010. At least I didn't raise you bunch of trash for nothing. Human demon stared at the corpse. He didn't spend 3 years to awaken their bloodlines out of kindness. He wanted them to be reborn at any time through the connection of their bloodlines. That was why he had ordered the primordial humans to not leave this place, and had even planned to wipe out all the civilizations outside of the primordial humans. It was to protect the primordial humans and leave himself a way out. Initially, he thought that he would only use this trump card when he encountered an expert in the future. Little did they expect that they would fall into the hands of a human before even leaving a small 5-star civilization. Human, let's wait and see. Human Devil's soul was weak, so he needed to find a place to rest. This place was no longer suitable for him to stay any longer. He could only leave the 5-star civilization and come back for revenge in the future. Taiji sect. After dealing with the human demon, Su Yu and the group of hunters returned. The sect leader peak was rebuilt, and it was even more majestic than before. Su Yu sat steadily on the faction master's throne. To his left was the Tai Chi faction's elder, who was in high spirits and standing ramrod straight. On the other side were the hunters, standing calmly. Everyone, the human demon has been eliminated. From now on, we will focus on development and revitalize our Tai Chi civilization, Su Yu said. Sect Master is wise. The Tai Chi faction's elders spoke in unison. Their voices were clear and loud, and their eyes were filled with respect and admiration as they looked at Su Yu. If it was to stabilize the prices of goods, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, exterminating the demonic humans was not something that could be done by ordinary people. Looking at the generations of sect masters, he believed that not many sect masters had the courage and ability to solve this problem. Now, I will announce the candidate for the sect leader, Su Yu said. His gaze swept across the crowd and landed on the old woman. From today onwards, Elder, you will be a candidate for the next faction master of the Tai Chi faction. Many of the elders had no objections to this. As the only elder Tian, it was normal for him to be chosen as a candidate. They were surprised that the Taiji sect would choose a candidate at this time. There's another thing to announce. I'll be heading to the 4 symbol civilizations for official business. I'll be gone for a long time. If the life card I left in the sect shatters, the candidate will inherit the position of the sect master. Mo Shaochai will handle this matter properly. The crowd was in an uproar. Sect leader, you can't leave. If it wasn't for you, what if something happened to the sect master again? After witnessing Su Yu's methods of quelling disasters twice, he suddenly found himself unable to leave. You can focus on running the civilization. If there are any problems, I will come back again, Su Yu said. How could there be so many big problems popping up one after another? Encountering two at the same time was already a small probability event. All right, the meeting is adjourned, Su Yu said. After leaving the Tai Chi Great Palace, Su Yu went to the martial artists' market. Huang Fu Liang and Yin Yu were busy sorting the taishu in the shop. Both of them looked very satisfied. Goodbye, brother Huang Fu. Su Yu smiled apathetically. The current situation was the best reward he could give Huang Fu Liang. As Xiao Chen strolled around the market, he noticed that more than 80% of the martial artists' market had become Ding's business. It could be said that Ding was raking in money every day. As for the resources and divine stones that Yao Bailing, Xiao Qian, Bao Qian, and the other rebellious merchants had seized, it was an astronomical figure. Not only did they bet their savings for many years on the speculation, but they also borrowed hundreds of times their own money from various parties just for this gamble. Now that he had lost the bet, everything belonged to Su Yu. According to a rough calculation, the total value of these resources was 100 times greater than the entire Tai Chi faction's treasury. It was equivalent to the sum of 10 five-star civilizations. This provided Ding with an abundant amount of funds for its rapid development. Su Yu met the King of Darkness for the last time. Before he left, he gave him many Jiuyin elixirs so that his strength could recover to its peak as soon as possible. My cultivation doesn't matter. I am a scabbard created by the Killing Path Master. In this life, I can only reach level 5 of the Middle Star Realm. I need to remind you not to forget the secret of the scabbard, the King of Darkness said. The Killing Path Master passed down the secret before his death, so it must be very important. Su Yu nodded. He had stored the secret in the depths of his mind and had not opened it yet. It involved secrets of the Path Master, so it was better not to get involved for the time being. At the very least, it could only be opened when one's strength was on par with the Path Master's. After settling everything, Su Yu returned to the faction master's peak. Yun Xianshuang and the young lady were preparing for this long journey. The Hunter King and many other hunters were also packing up. After this battle, they were very respectful of Su Yu. He had mastered the laws of time and space. Such a nature-defying genius would have a limitless future. As expected of the Path Master's disciple, he was extraordinary. Moreover, this person had a wide network of contact. He could actually contact a high-level civilization like the Four-Symbol Civilization, which further confirmed his identity as the Path Master's disciple. Therefore, the Hunter King and his companions decided. They would first return to the Hunter Alliance and hand over the people in their hands. Then, they would all join the Cauldron and become the core strength of the Cauldron. Firstly, they would be able to serve the Path Master's disciple. Secondly, they would be able to achieve long-term development in the Cauldron. An organization personally created by the Path Master's disciple would definitely have a terrifying scale in the future. At the very least, it would not be weaker than the Hunter Alliance. If they joined the Cauldron now, they would have the merit of helping the Path Master. In the future, their status in the Hunter Alliance would not be comparable to theirs. Once everything was prepared, they set off immediately. Through the intercivilization transportation portal, they would be transported to the nearest small civilization, and then to the other large civilizations. 2 years later. 2 years had passed since Su Yu and his companions had left. Everything in the Tai Chi faction was running normally, until a figure suddenly appeared in front of the Tai Chi faction. A few years have passed, but the Tai Chi faction is still the same. The person entered the waiting room and sighed softly. The Yin-Yang elder who received them was surprised. Who was this person? Why was he sighing like this? When he looked up, he was so shocked that his soul almost left his body. He cried out involuntarily, "Sect! Sect Master!" This person was none other than the previous sect master of the Tai Chi faction, who had been killed by the human demon's talisman. His life tablet had been shattered, which confirmed his death. Then, a new sect master was chosen. The Tai Chi faction master calmly looked at him, then strode into the Tai Chi faction. The disciples and elders along the way were all stunned. No one stopped him along the way. He ascended to the sect master's peak and naturally sat on the sect master's throne. The appearance of his aura immediately alerted Mo Shaochai, Elder Yu, and the other higher-ups of the Tai Chi faction, who all came to the Tai Chi Great Hall. Sect Master. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. Elder Yu was the most shocked of all. "You, aren't you dead?" The Tai Chi faction master calmly sighed. "When the talisman appeared, I had no way to avoid it. I could only use some secret technique to barely escape. However, I was also exiled to a certain place. I was trapped for 5 years before I managed to escape." This explanation was too far-fetched. "But Sect Master's life tablet has clearly shattered," Elder Yu said in shock. The Tai Chi faction master said, "The place where I was trapped must be special. It caused me to lose contact with my life tablet, which is why it shattered." He paused, then waved his sleeves. "However, since I'm back, everyone can rest assured. There's no need to panic anymore." Many elders in the hall had strange expressions. The worst was over. The most distressing thing was that they thought the sect master was dead, so they chose a new sect master. The current sect master was not dead, but the previous sect master had returned. Something like this had never happened in the history of the Tai Chi faction. For a moment they did not know what to do. "What? Are you not happy that I'm back? Or is there something that you can't say?" the Tai Chi faction master asked. As Elder Tian, Elder Yu stood up and said, "Sect Master, you don't know this. We mistakenly thought that you were dead, so we chose another sect master." "Is there such a thing?" The sect leader of the Tai Chi sect was slightly taken aback. He then waved his hand dismissively. "Forget it. You can't blame him for not knowing. Since I'm back, I'll remove him from his position as sect leader. From today onwards, all of you will listen to my commands." Elder Tian and the group of Earth Elders fell silent. If he had returned 2 years earlier, they wouldn't have made things difficult for him. However, 2 years ago, they had acknowledged Su Yu's position, and their respect and gratitude for him had come from the bottom of their hearts. They had already regarded him as the true faction master of the Tai Chi faction. Now that the former faction master had kicked Su Yu aside, they could not accept it. Without Su Yu, would the Tai Chi faction have its current stability and prosperity? "What? Do you have any objections?" The Supreme Ultimate Sect Master was displeased and said, "According to the rules of the Supreme Ultimate Sect, the death of the previous Sect Master can only be confirmed as the next Sect Master. Since I'm back, he naturally has to wait." "Are the rules like this, Mo Shaochai?" Mo Shaochai stood on the side. She didn't say a word. She just faintly nodded and said, "These are indeed the rules. However," she added, "you need to experience the coronation of the sect leader once again." As the protector of the Tai Chi sect, Mo Shaochai couldn't resist the rules. Even if she could fight against the faction master, she still had to follow the rules. The faction master frowned slightly and said, "That's not a big deal. Let's do it tomorrow. Now, report to me the current situation of the Tai Chi faction." Elder Yu sighed inwardly. Since things had come to this, they could only take one step at a time. Hence, he explained the recent situation of the Tai Chi faction to the faction master. After listening to the ins and outs of the matter, the faction master's face darkened. He angrily snorted and slammed the table. Outrageous! The people who heard this all secretly thought that the people of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had gone too far, and the human demon was too dangerous. That Su Yu is simply reckless. However, the faction master was reprimanding Su Yu. Elder Yu then said, "Faction master, it is precisely because of Su Yu's leadership that we are where we are today. Is there a misunderstanding?" The faction master rebuked him. What misunderstanding? Su Yu opened the Tai Chi faction's treasury without permission. He disregarded the Tai Chi faction's 5-billion-year foundation and almost destroyed it. Moreover, how could he be so careless when dealing with the human demon? The group of Earth Elders was infuriated. Su Yu's actions might have seemed unreasonable at the time, but the results later showed that he was absolutely right. The former faction master had returned after everything had settled down. He hadn't done anything at all. He had just sat there and enjoyed the stability and prosperity that Su Yu had brought. However, he was still reprimanding Su Yu. They were all extremely dissatisfied with his words. The stupidest thing of all was to imprison thousands of merchants and place a cauldron of unknown origin in order to choke the economic lifeline of the Tai Chi faction. What a fool! The faction master said, "Pass on my order. Release those merchants immediately and take back all the shops of the Cauldron organization. In addition, confiscate their funds and resources. Then, arrest and interrogate them. Find out where they came from." Chapter 2011. What? Elder Yu was shocked. "Faction Master, you can't do that. Those merchants were all from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. They were the ones who almost destroyed the Tai Chi faction. How could you just let them go?" The faction master said, "The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce is a reputable organization. How could they do such a thing? I think there must be a conspiracy. It must be related to Su Yu." Seeing that Elder Yu was about to say something, the faction master glared at him. "What? Is your order not effective anymore?" This. Elder Yu was powerless to resist. At this moment Mo Xiao Chai said, "You are not the faction master yet, so you don't have the right to give orders. Wait until you are crowned tomorrow." The faction master nodded slightly and stared at Elder Yu coldly. Then, he left. The atmosphere in the Tai Chi Great Hall was gloomy. No one had expected that the former faction master would come back and destroy the good situation created by Su Yu. Would those merchants of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce repent after they were released? Of course not. They would take back the wealth that they had lost, and the Tai Chi civilization would suffer. "Miss Mo, isn't our faction master too biased towards the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce?" Elder Yu asked cautiously. Mo Xiao Chai sneered. "Biased? He is from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce." "What?" Elder Yu pretended to be surprised, but he knew what was going on. How could it be possible that he was biased towards the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce for no reason? "What are you talking about? Old man, don't you understand?" Mo Xiao Chai rolled her eyes at him. Elder Yu said embarrassedly, "Miss Mo, do you have any brilliant plan?" "What brilliant plan can I have?" Mo Xiao Chai asked. Elder Yu sighed inwardly. The former faction master was too powerful. He didn't even die from that kind of explosion. Now, he had come back as the faction master to suppress everyone. However, Sect Master Su has a brilliant plan, Mo Xiao Chai said with a playful smile. "What? Sect Master Su knows about this?" Elder Yu's heart was filled with excitement. Sect Leader Su was simply too miraculous. 2 years ago, he had already predicted that this would happen and even left a plan in advance. A trace of admiration appeared in Mo Xiao Chai's eyes. "Well, he knew a long time ago that our former sect master should be inextricably linked to the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Before he left, he also asserted that the former sect master would suddenly return shortly after he left. Now, everything has come true." Elder Yu was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. How can Sect Master be so sure? Mo Xiao Chai faintly said, 80% of our economic lifelines are controlled by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. The current sect leader? Moreover, do you remember our previous sect leader Sima? I know. He took the sect master's inheritance and disappeared without a trace. Mo Xiao Chai said, from the very beginning, I suspected that sect master Sima's disappearance had something to do with this sect master. I've been investigating this matter in secret for many years, but unfortunately, I couldn't find any evidence. When Sect Master Su brought back the heavenly star 9 Yin and 9 Yang Great Array's Eye, I confirmed that Sect Master Sima didn't disappear for no reason. Instead, he was persecuted by someone and had no choice but to leave the Tai Chi sect. Then, he hid in the Dark Star civilization with serious injuries. Everything made sense once it was connected. Back then, Sect Master Sima strongly opposed handing over the economic lifelines to outsiders. He was especially resistant to the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Later, when he was about to be crowned as the Sect Master, he disappeared without a trace. The Sect Master candidate at that time, who was also the previous Sect Master, inherited it. Not long after this person became the Sect Master, he issued an order to welcome all foreign merchants to do business in the Tai Chi civilization. From the looks of it, it was very likely that he had been bribed by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Elder Yu said angrily, if that's the case, this person is really hateful. When a disaster like the human demons came, he deliberately pretended to be dead and hid. After Sect Master Su calmed everything down, he appeared again and tried in vain to invite the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce back. This kind of scum of the Tai Chi civilization should be punished. A dangerous arc appeared in Mo Xiao Chai's eyes. Killing him would be letting him off too easily. Sect Master Su left him a better choice. The next day, the entire city was in an uproar. The previous Sect Master had returned and regained control of the Tai Chi sect. Today, a new coronation ceremony would be held. The sensation of this matter was no less than an earthquake. The entire civilization was paying attention to it. In the Tai Chi palace, the sect master shook his sleeves and said energetically, "Let's go to the Dragon Prison Pass." He, Mo Xiao Chai, Elder Yu, and a group of Earth Elders all went there. After 5 years, the Dragon Prison Pass was reopened. As soon as they entered, countless members of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce rushed over. When they saw the Tai Chi sect master, they all begged for mercy. "Sect Master Chen, please help us. We are innocent." Sect Master Chen said with a compassionate expression, "We have made you suffer. After today, justice will be served." Mo Xiao Chai and Elder Yu saw this and felt disdain in their hearts. As expected, they begged for mercy as soon as they saw Sect Master Chen. Who would believe that there was nothing fishy going on? The group arrived at the palace where the coronation ceremony was held. But when they entered, they found that there were outsiders inside. 3 middle-aged men whom Sect Master Chen did not recognize were chatting in boredom. When they saw the group enter, their gazes fixed on Sect Master Chen. They could not help but grin and say, "Sect Master Su told us to wait for you here. He said that you would return in 3 years, or at most 30 years. It seems that even though Sect Master Su has incredible foresight, he did not expect you to be so impatient, right? Who are you? Why are you in the Holy Land of the Tai Chi faction?" Sect Master Chen shouted. He had a bad premonition in his heart. He released the aura of an early-stage 5-crown divine warrior. The 3 of them smiled and released their auras at the same time. They were 3 mid-stage 5-crown divine warriors. Sect Master Chen's pupils shrank. He gasped and shouted, "Mo Xiao Chai, stop them!" He turned around and fled. He had heard very clearly that they had been ordered to wait here by Su Yu. This meant that he had already predicted all of his plans. However, Mo Xiao Chai pushed Sect Master Chen towards her. She faintly took out a confession and read it on the spot, According to the surviving members of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, the original sect master of the Tai Chi sect, Chun Hao, was the 99th member of the Hidden Children faction of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. He was responsible for sneaking into the Tai Chi sect and taking control of the Tai Chi sect from within. In addition, Chun Hao was also involved in the murder of the former sect master Sima. According to the rules of the Tai Chi sect, I have the right to act on behalf of the Tai Chi sect and punish the sect master. Catch him. She did not make a move in the Taiji sect. Instead, she chose this place for the sake of the Taiji sect's reputation. Only the upper echelons of the Taiji sect knew about it. The 3-5 crown emperors chuckled and easily subdued sect leader Chun. Mo Xiaochai didn't say a word. She took out a yin-yang Tai Chi diagram and pointed it at sect head Chen's abdomen. Hearing the endless screams, sect leader Chen's muscles twitched, his eyes rolled back, and he fainted on the spot. Upon closer inspection, there was no cultivation at all. There was not a single bit of great desolate power in his body. Mo Xiaochai had used the legacy item of the Tai Chi faction to destroy sect leader Chen's inner world, turning him into a mortal. In the Dragon Prison Pass, where countless villains were imprisoned, it wasn't hard to imagine what kind of situation a mortal would be in. Let's go. Mo Xiaochai revealed a look of pity. This was the arrangement that Su Yu had left for the former sect leader. He would live and die on his own. After returning to the Tai Chi faction, Elder Yu, who was a candidate for the sect leader position, announced the grievous news to the outside world. Sect leader Chen's old illness had broken out, and he had died in the line of duty. The whole city sighed, but it was only a sigh. No one hoped for him to return. After all, Su Yu was enough. The news of his death didn't cause the slightest ripple, and it passed quietly. On the other side, after 2 years of transportation, Su Yu and the others left the border of the Tai Chi civilization's jurisdiction and entered the territory of another 5-star civilization. This civilization was the one that had planned to establish an inter-civilization transportation portal with the 5-star civilization. It was called the Purple Lizard Civilization. Mo Xiaochai had caused a lot of trouble in the past, disrupting the two civilizations' construction of the transportation portal. She had her own considerations. The Purple Lizard Civilization was a very special middle-class race. All the descendants they gave birth to were males. In order to ensure the reproduction of their offspring, they had to replenish a large number of women from other civilizations. Most of them were from low-level races, and they willingly married into the Purple Lizard Civilization. But there was still a considerable number of them that were obtained through various channels. For example, they were bought from human traffickers. Therefore, Mo Xiaochai strongly opposed the establishment of the transportation portal and, to a large extent, prevented the women of the Tai Chi civilization from becoming human traffickers' money bags. Now it seemed that her original decision was undoubtedly correct. With the relationship between sect leader Chun and the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, it was normal for him to cover up some black-hearted Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce that engaged in the trafficking of women. With him suppressing them from above, no matter how big the trouble was, it could be suppressed. Mo Xiaochai is really doing this for the good of the Tai Chi faction. Su Yu sighed slightly, but he was secretly puzzled. What kind of existence was Mo Xiaochai? During his tenure as the sect leader, he had read through the secret manuals that only the faction could master. As a result, he discovered a shocking piece of news. Since the first sect leader of the Tai Chi faction, every time the sect leader was crowned, one person would accomplish it. That person was Mo Xiaochai. Today, the Tai Chi faction had had dozens of sect leaders, and on average, each sect leader had been in power for 2 billion years. In total, it was tens of billions of years. However, even the strong men of the path leader level could not have such a long lifespan. Su Yu had once suspected that Mo Xiaochai was not a living creature at all. However, after several attempts, It was confirmed that her flesh and soul were both present. She was indeed a living creature. Why would such an immortal, indestructible creature, who lived as long as heaven and earth, be in the tiny Tai Chi faction? Her entire body was filled with inexplicable mysteries. Suyu shook his head and suppressed his thoughts. Then, he and the hunters used the intercivilization transportation portal and crossed over to the Purple Lizard civilization. As soon as they got off the transportation portal, they activated it again and chose the next 5-star civilization as the transportation point. They did not intend to stop at the Purple Lizard civilization. However, all of a sudden, Suyu seemed to have sensed something. His soul swept into the distance, and his pupils constricted fiercely. Xia Jingyu? Yes, he had sensed Xia Jingyu's aura. It was her, there was no mistaking it. Just you wait. The sudden surprise made Suyu's heart beat wildly. Hadn't she returned to the goddess tribe? Why was she here? Suyu could not help but furrow his brows as he thought of the Purple Lizard civilization's tradition of abducting women from other races. Could it be that Xia Jingyu had been abducted? Chapter 2012. As he pondered, he followed the scent and instantly arrived at the other end of the Purple Lizard civilization. Standing in the clouds, Xiao Chen's gaze swept across the area and landed on another intercivilization teleportation formation. On top of the formation stood a familiar yet strange figure. Her appearance was indeed that of Xia Jingyu. It was exactly the same. But in Suyu's eyes, her soul belonged to another person. It's not Xia Jingyu. Suyu shook his head calmly as another memory surfaced in his mind. Back then, in the reverse flow of time and space, he was ambushed by a calamity fairy and chased into the river of time and space. Just as he was about to sink into time and space, a woman who looked exactly like Xia Jingyu happened to pass by on a canoe. She rescued Suyu and brought him to shore. The woman in front of him, who looked exactly like Xia Jingyu, was the one he met back then. Her name was still fresh in Suyu's mind. Qing Yun. Who was she? Why did she look so much like Xia Jingyu? The intercivilization transportation portal was activated. Qing Yun was shrouded in a layer of light as she was about to be transported away. Suddenly, she glanced at the sky as if she had sensed something and fixed her gaze on Suyu. She frowned slightly and murmured softly, "Seems familiar." "Yuner, who are you talking about?" Beside her stood an effeminate man with a plum blossom mark between his brows. A pair of dim yellow eyes exuded a faint pressure, but there was no fluctuation in his entire body. Standing in the crowd, he looked like an ordinary person. "Maybe it's just an illusion," Qing Yun said lightly. The effeminate man raised his eyes and glanced at the sky. Suyu felt the rules in his body going berserk uncontrollably. It was 10 times more violent than when the human demon launched an attack at the level of a path master. His heart trembled and he immediately looked away. Fortunately, the gaze only flickered for a moment before disappearing without a trace. "Let's go." The whereabouts of the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron have been discovered through the reverse flow of time and space. "We can report back to the Holy Mountain," the effeminate man said calmly. The rest of the light glanced at the sky once again. It was in the direction where Suyu was standing. However, Suyu had already disappeared. The effeminate man flicked his finger and a speck of dust fell to the ground. Suyu returned to the intercivilization transportation portal where the Hunter Kings were and said without hesitation, "Activate the transportation portal and leave immediately." He no longer had time to care about the woman named Qing Yun. The effeminate man gave him a very bad feeling, as if he instinctively hated him. With Suyu's character, he would never hate someone for no reason. Only this person was an exception. Most importantly, Suyu felt that he was in great danger when he looked at him. He had to leave this place immediately. All right. The Hunter King activated the teleportation formation and quickly teleported them away. The teleportation coordinates were set at the 4 symbols civilization. Fortunately, the Purple Lizard Civilization and the Four Symbols Civilization had established a stable teleportation connection, so they could save a long journey. The formation activated and teleported them away. Almost at the same moment, the Purple Lizard Civilization suddenly squirmed violently. Volcanoes erupted from the inside of the Purple Lizard Civilization. It was as if there was a weight that the civilization could not bear, and the pressure caused the civilization to change drastically. The Lord of Civilization, who was in seclusion, suddenly opened his eyes and sensed the endless explosive power deep underground. His eyes were filled with shock, and his face was pale and confused. Dust from the holy mountain. How could it be dust from the holy mountain? Bang! The entire civilization exploded like a balloon that had been crushed, turning into broken dust and airwaves that rolled in all directions. When everything was gone, only a tiny speck of dust was left, calmly drifting down into the void below. Wherever it passed, all meteorites and civilizations were crushed into pieces. It was as if a speck of dust had an infinite weight that could crush everything. Su Yu and the others, who were in the midst of teleportation, experienced an unprecedented shock the moment the Purple Lizard Civilization was destroyed. The teleportation was extremely chaotic. It was supposed to be a single space channel, but in the end, hundreds of space channels appeared in front of them, leading to different civilizations. Moreover, being in the teleportation, they had no choice but to choose which civilization they wanted to go to. Protect yourself, Su Yu yelled, and he was randomly sucked into a channel. Yun Qianshuang, the young girl, and the hunters were all sucked into different space channels. Su Yu only felt the space around him tremble violently. Experience told him that he was about to reach the exit of the teleportation formation. However, when he reached the end, Su Yu found that the end of the space was in a sealed state. This meant that the exit had been erased or destroyed. Hundreds of space passages just happened to send him into a closed space passage, a one-way space passage? Suppressing the grievance in his heart, Su Yu carefully observed the sealed exit and found that the space barrier was relatively weak. It must have been sealed not long ago. With his attainments in space, it was not too difficult to open it. Space vortex. Su Yu pointed a finger at the sealed space barrier. The entire space barrier immediately twisted and rotated rapidly with the center as the focal point. Then, with a popping sound, it could not withstand the distortion, and a gap with a diameter of 10 feet burst open. A gust of air with a hint of blood instantly rushed in. Su Yu seized the opportunity and appeared in a flash. This space exit was probably a temporary exit of the intercivilization transportation formation, but it had been destroyed. He did not expect that the exit was originally located in the Four Symbols Civilization. Now, by a freak combination of factors, he had appeared in a temporary transportation formation that had been temporarily built and sealed by someone else. Beneath his feet was not a civilization, but a battleship that had been battered and battered. The battleship was not large. It was only the size of a slightly larger meteorite. On the surface of the battleship, countless corpses were scattered all over the ground. They were dressed in different clothes, and it was impossible to tell who they were. Coincidentally, when Su Yu came out, there were several black-clothed men in uniform in front of him. They were holding true Emperor-level divine weapons and stabbing the corpses on the ground one by one. Some of the dying ones were killed, and those who pretended to be dead were killed as well. It seemed that a certain war had ended and was in the final stages of winding down. The tremendous space fluctuation immediately alarmed the three black-clothed men. They turned around abruptly and stared at Su Yu in shock. How did you appear? The temporary transportation formation of Nirvana was destroyed. Nirvana? Su Yu immediately recalled the mysterious organization that Xing Yuanxin had joined. It was an existence that relied on faith to maintain the operation of a huge organization. Did a war break out? Su Yu guessed. The three black-clothed men came to their senses, and murderous intent surged. Great, on the battleship abandoned by Nirvana, there is actually a fish that slipped through the net. This was originally a battlefield between Nirvana and them, so there should not be a third party. Su Yu's sudden appearance naturally made them think that he was a remnant of Nirvana. Your Excellency, I think you have misunderstood. Please listen to my explanation, Su Yu said politely. Explanation, my ass. Go to hell. The three black-clothed men were speechless. With the irreconcilable enmity between the two parties, what else was there to explain? The three of them, each holding a true Emperor-level divine weapon, swore to kill Su Yu. The cultivation of the three of them should be the lowest in this war, no higher than the Double Crown Emperor. Su Yu had no choice but to point in the air and subdue all three of them with a space divine technique. Then, he threw them into the space storage device. Looking at the huge battleship, and then at the vast void outside, Su Yu was at a loss. He had no idea where he was or what kind of war he was in. The most important thing now was to find the intercivilization transportation formation that would transport him back to the Four Symbols civilization. His eyes searched around, but there was no transportation formation on the deck of the battleship. With a flash, he entered the cabin of the battleship. As soon as he entered, he met two black-clothed men who were delivering intelligence. As they walked, they communicated, "The General has ordered us to clean up the battleship quickly. Later, the Deputy Commander will personally receive this Black Star battleship and the hostages. This time, we can be considered to have won a battle. We captured the owner of the Black Star battleship alive, defeated the enemy's reinforcements, and forced them to give up." As the two were talking, they suddenly sensed Su Yu's aura approaching. Looking up, they said in shock, "You are just passing by." Su Yu brushed past them expressionlessly. "Wait, which team are you from? Who is the general? What's his name?" one of the black-clothed men asked suspiciously. Su Yu turned around helplessly and said, "My name is Su Yu. I'm really just passing by. Can you trust me?" "Stop. Verify your identity." The other black-clothed man also sensed that something was wrong. Su Yu sighed. "Why do you have to ask so many questions?" He raised his hand and the power of space bound the two of them. Throwing them into the space storage device, Su Yu grabbed the information in their hands and flipped through it. He learned a little bit about the situation. It turned out that this was the battlefield of Nirvana and the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Both sides had discovered an extremely ancient relic here. Originally, the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had discovered it first and was prepared to monopolize it. However, Nirvana somehow got wind of the news and led a large number of battleships over to fight for it. The fight between the two sides quickly evolved into a war. Because of this, after 5 years of war, there was only a recent result. With a solid foundation, the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce defeated Nirvana. Most importantly, the Black Star ship under their feet was the commander-in-chief of Nirvana's war. The two sides first fought with their battleship. Nirvana's battleships were the first to be destroyed. Then, they fought with their experts through the temporary intercivilization transportation portal. However, the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was more prepared. Both sides fought fiercely above the Black Star ship. After a few years, Nirvana was the first to be unable to fight and withdrew. The Black Star ship and its captain were controlled by the enemy. They were only waiting for the deputy commander of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's Eastern War Zone to come and take the battleships and captives back to the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Coincidentally, Su Yu appeared here through Nirvana's intercivilization transportation portal not long after Nirvana's retreat. Therefore, he was mistaken for Nirvana. Seeing this, Su Yu did not know whether to laugh or cry. He was wrongly accused. However, things had come to this, and Su Yu had no other choice. Because the Black Star ship in front of him was only a small part of what he saw. In the void outside, there were tens of thousands of huge battleships floating. The size of each battleship was no smaller than that of a 5-star civilization. They cruised nearby, guarding against the appearance of Nirvana's battleships. They guarded the Black Star ship in the center, waiting for the deputy commander of the Eastern War Zone to arrive. Chapter 2013. Suyu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The information showed that among those huge battleships, there was no lack of battleships filled with 5 crown emperors. The number was astronomical, enough to make one's scalp numb. If he had been teleported to their battleship, he would have been like a sheep in a pack of wolves. He quickly searched the cabin, subduing all the people of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce he encountered along the way. Fortunately, there were no strong fighters on the ship, and he arrived at the command center of the battleship without any obstruction. He could sense a strong soul aura from a distance, probably at the early stage of a 4-crown emperor. In addition, there were a few relatively weak ones, fixed somewhere, motionless. They must be the so-called commander-in-chief of this war. After thinking for a moment, Suyu stood in front of the cabin door and took out the Tianyi bow. Compared to before, the Tianyi bow was still extremely heavy in Suyu's hands, and he could only put it on the ground. Even with all his strength, he could only pull the bowstring in the shape of a crescent. The arrow that injured the Tianyi bow aimed at the 4-crown emperor inside and shot out. The cabin door, which was made of hard materials and reinforced with seals, was pierced through like paper by the Tianyi arrow. The 4-crown emperor inside struggled in panic, roaring in anger. Suyu quickly put away the bow and rushed inside without hesitation. 6 types of chains of law shot out at the same time. With a flash of 6-colored light, the 4-crown emperor who was busy blocking the arrows was killed on the spot. Not even a speck of dust was left. Suyu retracted the light, raised his hand and put away the bow and arrow. Only then did he have the leisure to look at the situation in the command center. He saw 2 corpses lying on the ground, probably people who had undergone nirvana. There was also a young woman in a white robe, with some kind of faith totem on her forehead. She was sealed and suppressed on a pillar, staring at Suyu with her mouth agape. The scene just now had happened so suddenly that she had no time to react. "Thank you for saving me," the white-robed girl said, coming back to her senses. What made her feel awkward was that Suyu only glanced at her indifferently, then continued to rummage around. He didn't seem to have any intention of untying her. After searching for a while, Suyu walked back and stared at her. "Are you the commander of the Black Star ship?" The white-robed girl nodded and said, "You don't have to say, I already know. Is there a backup inter-civilization transportation portal here that can help us escape from this place?" Suyu's ears were activated with soul energy, and he could easily hear what she was thinking. The white-robed girl opened her mouth. "Well, there used to be, but it was taken by the enemy. Then we can only use the Black Star ship to escape. Can we contact the Eastern Battle Zone for help?" The white-robed girl was speechless. "Why not? It seems like it has been abandoned by the Eastern Zone. How unlucky to have boarded this boat," the white-robed girl asked. The white-robed girl did not open her mouth again. She just stared at Suyu quietly. "It's good that you do. If that's the case, then I'll have to take some risks," Suyu said regretfully. The white-robed girl stared at Suyu suspiciously, and finally found a chance to speak. "You can listen to other people's inner thoughts? Of. You from the two. Suyu stopped listening to her and ignored her. He then said, "If you want to live, then obediently do as I say. Otherwise you will all die." Of to. I of. I. As. Of. The. You. The white-robed girl bit her lips and said hatefully. He had barged in for no reason, ignored her for no reason, and even threatened her for no reason. Then, a shocking scene unfolded. However, this mysterious silver-haired man pointed at the air, and the 4-crowned emperor that had just died reappeared. However, there was no soul within it. Then, the silver-haired man separated a part of his soul and fused it into the body of the Emperor. Then, he released a large group of captive members of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce and controlled them with secret soul technique. Finally, he walked over and slapped the white-robed girl's head. B*****. The white-robed girl felt dizzy and fainted. Suyu erased all the relevant memories. Just like that, the whole battleship was under Suyu's control. But he did not act rashly. A small black starship could not escape from the protection of tens of thousands of giant battleships. If he wanted to leave, he had to use another method. After waiting patiently for a few days, suddenly, several five-crown emperors landed on the Black Star ship and set about building a temporary intercivilization transportation portal. 1 day later, the temporary transportation portal shook violently, and an unprecedentedly powerful aura appeared. Dozens of five-crown emperors accompanied by a peak four-crown emperor suddenly appeared. Where is she? The peak four-crown emperor was dressed in a gorgeous black dress. Her temperament was cold, and her pair of phoenix eyes were filled with victory. Reporting to Deputy Commander Jean, she is in the command room. Haha, the famous Yi Mingxian has finally fallen into my hands. Her name was Zhang Xian, and she was the direct descendant of the vice president of the Six-Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. She was the deputy commander of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's Eastern War Zone Army, accumulating merits. This time, under her command, the successful capture of Yi Mingxian, who was known as the Goddess of War in the Eastern War Zone, must be a great merit. Therefore, she did not hesitate to rush over from the command center to take the hostage. Surrounded by a group of five-crown emperors, they all went to the command center. As soon as they opened the cabin door, they immediately found the unconscious Yi Mingxian. Their faces were filled with excitement. Looking at Yi Mingxuan's side, there was a silver-haired captive. She only glanced at the silver-haired captive, then stared at Yi Mingxian and said, "Wake her up, haha, how can we let her faint at such an exciting moment?" Yes. The middle-aged man guarding the hostage immediately transferred a wisp of primordial energy into Yi Mingxian. Yi Mingxian moaned, shaking her head as she opened her eyes. What entered her eyes was Suyu, who was also a captive, almost falling onto her shoulder. Hun. Yi Mingxian glanced at the guard of the Four-Crown Emperor and suddenly understood. General Hun. What did you do to General Hun? Suyu pretended to be unconscious, secretly praising her. This woman's mind was lively, and her reaction was quite sharp. General? Didn't the report say that all the generals were executed on the spot? Zhang Xian frowned. The Four-Crown Emperor said, General Hun was a fish that escaped the net. He was captured and imprisoned here, awaiting Deputy Commander Zhang's punishment. There is no need to punish him, just execute him. Zhang Xian said. What a ruthless woman. Suyu thought. Without looking at Suyu, Zhang Xian walked in front of Yi Mingxian with a smile that was not a smile. She squatted down and looked into her eyes. My goddess of war, 100 years ago, during the Battle of the Meteor River, weren't you awe-inspiring, defeating me? Why are you the general of a defeated army now? Yi Mingxuan's expression was calm. She said indifferently, winning and losing are common in war. Furthermore, you had set up a trap for us, waiting for us to jump into it. Even if we lost, it was nothing. Nirvana had heard of the appearance of a mysterious ancient relic, which was why he had led his army to attack this place. But in the end, he discovered that the relic was a man-made fake relic. There was a huge warship from the 10,000-star Alliance Chamber of Commerce lying in ambush. Hence, the unprepared Nirvana showed signs of defeat. There was a great disparity in strength between the two sides, and in the end, he was defeated. To be precise, it was already a miracle that Yi Mingxian, with her weak strength, had fought against an enemy 10 times her own for a whole 5 years. An ordinary person would not have lasted even a year. All is fair in war, Zhang Xian said with a smile. The two women looked at each other with deep animosity. Suddenly, Zhang Xian smiled faintly. However, I can tell you a secret. Actually, we really did discover a distant ancient ruin. It's very, very dangerous inside. Even a Taoist master wouldn't be able to return after entering it. I believe that there must be a shocking secret hidden within. It's just that we changed the location of the relic and deliberately leaked it to you Nirvana. Yimingxuan's eyes flickered. A relic that could even kill Pathmasters, what kind of level was it? Even Su Yu, who was secretly eavesdropping, was shocked. Yimingxian, I know what you are thinking. But unfortunately, we 4 deputy commanders, including the commander, have unanimously decided that we will not let you return to Nirvana. You can either join the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce or be imprisoned forever, never to see the light of day. Yimingxuan's expression did not change, showing a superhuman calmness. Unable to get the expression she wanted, Zhang Xian's patience ran out. Her gaze became sharp. Bring our goddess of war back to the command center. Yes. The 4-crowned emperor walked over. But just as he was walking toward Yimingxian, he suddenly attacked Zhang Xian without warning. His attack was so sudden that Zhang Xian was caught off guard. She only had time to put up a defense by her side. But the 5-crowned emperor behind her were not to be trifled with. One of them, who had a cultivation base as high as the peak of the 5-crowned emperor, snorted. The 4-crowned emperor's body suddenly froze. Then, a few 5-crowned emperor attacked at the same time, turning him into dust. But just as their attention was attracted by the 4-crowned emperor, the captive, Su Yu, attacked without warning. A shocking chain of the law of death wrapped around Zhang Xian's body. When the 5-crowned emperor reacted, Zhang Xian had already been pulled into Su Yu's embrace, blocking in front of him. How dare you? Let go of Deputy Commander Zhang. The 5-crowned emperor was furious. Only now did they realize that they had been tricked. If Su Yu had attacked from the start, he would have been stopped by the 5-crowned emperor before he could even attack. But because the 4-crowned emperor had attracted most of their attention, Su Yu had the opportunity to succeed. If you do not want your deputy commander to die here, you can try to attack. Let's see if she dies first at the hands of my law of death, or if I die at your hands first. Zhang Xian was stunned and confused. Then, her expression was replaced by anger. Yimingxian, you set me up? Su Yu struck out with his palm, shattering the seal. Yimingxian had a smile that was not a smile. As you said, there is nothing to deceit in war. Of course, the one who tricked you was not me. Glaring at Su Yu, Yimingxuan's first impression of him could be said to be rather bad.